Final practice of the 108th running of the Indianapolis 500. 75 degrees, mostly cloudy out here. It is beautiful. I can't express enough how wonderful it is. If you're not out here yet, what are you doing? Get your booty over here and support all these drivers for the 108th running of the Indianapolis 500. Let's start with some positive news out of the gate. We mentioned the good weather. Drivers are on the track. Let's take a look at some of your top speeds so far to this point. Scott Dixon at the top of that leaderboard, 227.2 miles per hour. Elio Castroneves at 226.9, and Pato O'Ward at 226.6 miles per hour. We're going to release this on social media a little bit later today, but the fan hosts will have their 500 selections for the 108th running of the Indianapolis 500. I will give you mine now. There's something about getting behind a driver that is attempting to be a part of history, and there's a number of different historical angles that you could look at going into the 108th running, but the one that I'm referring to is the attempt at double duty by Kyle Larson. He's going to attempt to complete both the Indianapolis 500 and the Coca-Cola 600 in the same day, and for Larson, he's attempting to be the first driver to take on the feat since Kurt Busch did it back in 2014 with Andretti Autosport. Kyle will begin his day on Sunday. That he has the car to do it. There's no doubt he has the car to do it. And without question, he has the driving skills to be able to capture this race. Is it probably a safer bet to go with drivers that know the speedway well, that know what the grueling element of the Indianapolis 500 is? Yes. But I love the story. I love the story of what Kyle Larson's trying to do. I love the idea of him being able to complete both of those. But not only do I think he can complete both, I think he can actually go ahead and win the Indianapolis 500 outright for Arrow McLaren. Those are your positives out of the gate. But now we shift towards a more unfortunate avenue after two games in the Eastern Conference Finals. The Boston Celtics take out your Indiana Pacers 126-110 last night, take a 2-0 series lead. So much went wrong for the Pacers last night, and that's not even referring to the aspect of their series being in serious turmoil and everything riding on the status of that left hamstring of Tyrese Haliburton, which we will get into in this opening segment. But first, with last night, the question was, where would the Pacers be from a mental standpoint after giving up game one? Lesser teams would get punched to the mouth right away to open game two, likely fold, and that would be that. Pacers didn't do that. They come out actually with a first quarter lead, 27-25. Things are looking really good in terms of putting those narratives to bed that they're not going to be ready, or perhaps they'd be shell-shocked from the way things ended in game one. And then you have that second quarter and the extended run that features a 20-0 run, a 22-2 run at one point in time for the Boston Celtics. Those types of things cannot happen in the conference finals. They can't happen at all in the playoffs, but they can happen in the conference finals against a team like the Boston Celtics. There's too many weapons there. They're too good defensively. They're too good beyond the arc. They are a perfect and near complete team that we've pointed out this entire season. And at any point in time in the playoffs, let alone on the road, if you're going to be subjected to a 20-0 run, a 22-0 run, you're basically cooked. And the only reason the Pacers weren't cooked is because Pascal Siakam reminded everybody why he is worthy of an extension here in Indiana this offseason. He is the only reason that the Pacers somehow, despite all of that, are only down 6 at the break. I'm not here for full moral victories, but the fact the Pacers were still in this conversation at halftime after that run by Boston, after everything they went through after game one, the fact this is just a 6-point game at the intermission, I do tip the cap there. Of course, that cap gets firmly put back on with how the second half went, but I will acknowledge the fact that they could have folded there, and Pascal Siakam did not let them fold. And he's taken a ton of criticism throughout this postseason, especially after games 1 and 2 in Milwaukee, when it felt like he disappeared. And it felt like, well, he's getting up there in age. He's 30. How many years on a potential max contract do you really want to commit to this guy? I would say, and we talked to Tony East about this earlier in the week, there is enough evidence in contracts in the NBA where just because a guy is 30 years old before he gets a 4 or 5 year deal does not mean it's inherently going to be a bad contract. There are risks with it for sure. And there are examples of instances where players have not lived up to the back half of deals. If you're that worried about it, you could front load some money. You could modify some things here and there with the contract itself. I'm not worried about it with Pascal Siakam. I think his game and what he's able to do still ages well into his early 30s. And the Pacers are going to feel that way too, because this is at its core been an audition for Pascal Siakam. It's not just been a courting period for the Pacers. It has been an active audition for Siakam to see if he pairs well with Tyrese Haliburton. Because moving forward, when the offseason arrives, regardless of how this conference finals winds up going for the Pacers, and I will admit, it's not great. It is very bleak right now. But regardless of how the rest of the conference finals go, the decisions that Kevin Pritchard and Chad Buchanan are going to have to make about this team in the offseason are as imperative and as consequential of decisions as you're going to find in the team-building era that the Pacers are currently in. Because you have to get it right. You have to be right about Tyrese Haliburton. We've talked about how you have to be right about Benedict Mathurin, who we've not been able to see, obviously, with injury this entire postseason. And you have to be right on your acquisition for Pascal Siakam. If you wind up being wrong, if you doubt yourself or for some reason the money's too rich, it's not a total ender for this window for the Pacers. It is a step back because of the first-round capital you gave up this year, but it is by no means a, well, they're screwed for the next 4 years. This window's over, and, hey, let's just enjoy these final 2 or 3 games against Boston, and that's the best that this group had to offer. I don't believe we're there. But you need core pieces around Tyrese Haliburton, and Pascal Siakam fits that mold. In fact, going back through everything last night in Game 2, Pascal Siakam is really the only Pacer that you would not have a severe problem with how things went down. I suppose maybe that's a little bit too hard with Tyrese Haliburton because he did look sharp. He was efficient throughout that ball game until he gets hurt, minus the defensive end. I'm not going to get into that today with Haliburton. I'll get into the Pacers as a whole, but we know what a liability Tyrese Haliburton has been at times on the defensive end. That's not my conversation today. Haliburton gets somewhat of a reprieve because the team totally folded when he went out in the third quarter. And maybe not in the sense that they quit, but they got fully knocked out once Tyrese Haliburton left. There's only so much you can do. And Siakam did his best. But there's only so much you can do when that late in a game you basically have to have. If your star player goes down, you're working uphill. So Siakam's 28, solid. Pacers defensively, don't have time for it. Don't have time for what the Pacers put on display yesterday in Game 2. Because it's against everything that Rick Carlisle has preached for this group. We knew how bad they were at stretches of the first half of the season. The mark against the Pacers was, oh, it's this flashy offensive team that gets up and down the floor, but they're bottom of the league defensively. And the one thing that changed for them, especially after acquiring Pascal Siakam, was they got a little bit better defensively. Not to the point that they're top 5, top 10 in the league, but they were average. They were playing for average on the defensive end. And that is part of what propelled them to the win over Milwaukee, to that win on the road in the Garden in Game 7. And regardless of the status of Tyrese Haliburton, if we're even entertaining the possibility that the Indiana Pacers are going to hang around in this series or stave off a sweep or make a series out of this, it starts with them on the defensive end. Because the pace hasn't really slowed down for them. They're still scoring north of 100 in both of these games. They were right there in Game 1. But defensively, they're letting the Celtics get whatever they want, more so than anywhere in the paint. You understand that Jaylen Brown is having a career postseason series against the Pacers right now? He matches a career high last night for 40 points, but it's not just the point total that pushes you back. It's the way he's doing it. Last night, 40 points, a career high for him. And he's averaging in the postseason 25, 6, and 2 on 54% from the field. This is a player a year ago that is being mocked for, oh, he can't go left, and oh, why are you giving a max contract to Jaylen Brown, and he's not the right guy to pair with Jason Tatum. The bigger issue for me is not just his scoring acumen, it's where the points are coming from. He's living in the paint. Everybody else on this Celtics team, outside of those frustrating, did he take an extra step, Jason Tatum drives, has been from beyond the arc. And ordinarily, that's the way to beat the Celtics. They are a high-scoring team, but they do a ton of it from beyond the arc. And they don't traditionally, at least without Kristaps Porzingis, live in the paint. Jaylen Brown's living there. He has high-level real estate in the Garden in the painted area. 66 points in 2 games. 34 have come from the painted area. A place where you're supposed to have rim protection from Miles Turner. A place where you're supposed to have help side defense that is going to limit those driving angles. And I'll give credit to Siakam again, because he's done his best when he's drawn that matchup. And he has been solid on both ends of the floor. But for Jaylen Brown, it's been easy. It's been a bump of the chest here, a bump of the chest there, a spin to the right or the left. Thank you very much. I'll take 2 points and put him on the line. You can strategize as much as you want with where the Pacers can find points, can find offense if Tyrese Haliburton is forced to miss extended time. But that's not the reason that they are down 0-2. That's not the reason they lost last night. The reason they lost last night is because they couldn't generate stops. And it was a problem all during the regular season. If you're playing turnstile-like defense against any team, let alone the Boston Celtics, it's going to be a short series. And that's easier said than done when you have a high-octane team like the Boston Celtics, but it's been a group failure on the defensive end for the Pacers. Now, the good news for them, and this is very much a glass-half-full argument, but you've seen it anywhere you've been looking for Pacers reprieve, Pacers help, Pacers reassurance, even prior to the Tyrese Haliburton injury. They haven't lost a game at home. You've done your part, Indianapolis. Gainbridge has been amazing. Gainbridge Fieldhouse has been the best arena in the NBA. They are the only team remaining in the postseason that have yet to lose at home. And I have no doubt, especially when you got Pacers and Racers, that that place is going to be insane this weekend. It's going to be awesome. This whole weekend is not going to be ruined just because the Pacers are down 0-2. Gainbridge won't let it, but the Pacers have to meet them somewhere. And that challenge becomes all the more daunting if Tyrese Haliburton misses extended time. If for some reason you've been under a rock the last 24 hours, at least you crawled out in time to be a part of Carb Day, so I thank you for that. But yes, Tyrese Haliburton left last night with what was originally called left leg soreness. It was then diagnosed as a left hamstring injury. Left hamstring soreness is specifically what they called it. And if you're doing the math at home or in person, shout out to Pagoda Plaza. Appreciate you all being here. Let's go. Happy Carb Day to you. If you're doing the math here in person, yes, that's the same hamstring that forced him to miss 10 games this year. Hamstrings are such a buzzkill in the NBA. The Knicks just experienced it last series, and you saw what OG Anunoby tried to do. Now, that was a legitimate strain, which is what Tyrese Haliburton had in the early goings, or excuse me, in the latter portion of the season when he's forced to miss 10 games. This is not a strain. This is soreness. That's so ambiguous that Pacers fans, and I get it, you have to be, because you have to get testing done, and you have to have him see where he's at and go through the doctor process. But the label of soreness can mean anything from, he's just going to monitor it for 2 days, and he'll be out there for game 3, and it'll be good. But what degree of percentage is he going to be available? Or it could mean it's a re-aggravation, and he's going to be out for a couple games. If it's the latter, you're asking players on this roster, especially at the guard spot, to be put in a position they really haven't been put in all year. I love TJ McConnell. Who doesn't? Everybody loves TJ McConnell. If you're going to ask him to take on, let's say, 30 minutes instead of his usual 17 off the bench, if you're going to ask more of him because of where your guard depth is at, where you're basically interchanging, you're either playing a bigger lineup or you're starting Nembhard and Haliburton. You're starting Nembhard and McConnell. Because if Haliburton's off the board, your option is either go Nembhard at your true point, keep Neesmith, Siakam, and Turner there and maybe throw out Shepard into a starting role, or keep Nembhard where he's at, have McConnell run the offense, and keep Turner, Neesmith, and Siakam. And you're asking a lot out of TJ to the point that the question becomes, is TJ McConnell capable of keeping up how efficient he has been with a bigger workload? That's point A there. Point B, which doesn't say much for last night because they were obliterated, the second unit. What happens to the second unit if TJ McConnell is being asked to be a starter? What happens to that group? And I'm not as frustrated as some are with Rick Carlisle. I don't like the lineup to start the fourth, but I understand to some extent that game's over. You're down 19, Haliburton's gone, you tried to go on an early run, it wasn't there. I'm not mad about getting extended rest for Siakam late in that game, because with where your rotation is, you can't afford to have any fatigue, more so than you already have with the playoffs, going into a game 3 that you absolutely have to have. I will say, though, the answer for Haliburton's absence cannot be more Doug McDermott. I'm sorry. Doug's had a great career. I tip the cap to him. I don't want to see him again in the playoffs. I said that in Milwaukee. I thought I made it clear then. Clearly, I did not. No more Doug McDermott, please. That's all I asked for there. In terms of where the Pacers go from here, it starts on the defensive end. And it starts with Siakam and Turner and asking for career-like performances, especially on the defensive end, from Nembhard and Neesmith. Is it impossible to get a game at home? No, it's not. Boston, without Kristaps Porzingis, are not the Warriors of 2018. They're not the Lakers of the 2000s. They're a very good team, but they're not unbeatable. The question becomes, from an offensive standpoint, where do you fill the minutes for Tyrese Haliburton? And for me, it either comes, like I said, from TJ McConnell into that starting role, or perhaps you're asking Nembhard to take up point guard duties, and you're bumping up the rookie Ben Shepard, who, while he's been cold the first 2 games of the conference finals, you need him to be the electric Ben Shepard that he was through 2 series if you're going to have any chance. We'll come back to the Pacers in a second. The other concurrent event this week outside of all the festivities going on for Carb Day, here in the final practice of the 108th running of the Indianapolis 500, is Colts OTAs. We go from one star to another. As the Pacers go by Tyrese Haliburton, so too do the Colts go by Anthony Richardson. And it's very early. I know everybody's going to be having push notifications on from Adam Schefter and company the entire offseason, because you cannot afford to have any missteps from Anthony Richardson. But so far, as anticipated, full go. We had an opportunity to talk a little bit with Kevin Bowen off the air, and of course you heard Kevin and Andy today on the wake-up call with KB and Andy from 7 to 10 a.m. When you're watching Anthony Richardson, at least from their accounts, you'd have no idea that he was making a return from injury. That's a step forward. I don't care how little the percentage is. If you're hearing positive news from Anthony Richardson in terms of his throwing motion, in terms of the speed of the football, in terms of the distance, in terms of his overall health, and the report is he doesn't feel achy, there's no setbacks, that is ultimately good news. Because for the Colts, it's not just the de facto year of Anthony Richardson. It is finally getting the right quarterback to unlock the full potential for this offense. Shane Steichen's a heck of a coach. You can see just from the play designs and concepts alone that the Colts are working with that he is a serious player in the NFL. But a coach is only as good as the quarterback he's working with. And I give a lot of credit there for what they were able to navigate with Gardner Minshew. But on the Anthony Richardson side of the ledger, it opens up more for Michael Pittman Jr. Perhaps even though I'm more down on him than most, it opens up the long game for Alec Pierce. And maybe there's an opportunity for him. If not, A.D. Mitchell will gladly pick up that mantle and be an explosive downfield threat for the Colts. Additionally, we finally get to see what was sold to us since April of 2023, which is the concept of option looks or dual running threat looks of an Anthony Richardson with Jonathan Taylor in the backup concept. That is where things really get interesting for the Indianapolis Colts, is what that tandem and running threat winds up looking to opposing defenses, because it is an arms race. We've known that since last year's draft. C.J. Stroud has the career year that the Colts wanted out of Anthony Richardson for the rookie season. Just because Anthony Richardson doesn't have that doesn't mean he's not able to bounce back in his second year, because he's saying all the right things about what he did with his time recovering from injury. The argument last year, for those that forget, was, do you sit Anthony Richardson out of the gate or do you play him? And the point to sit him was, he can sit back, he can learn the NFL offense, he can digest Shane Steichen's playbook, and by the time that you feel comfortable to send him out there, he'll be ready to go. They didn't do that. I didn't want them to do that. I wanted to turn Anthony Richardson loose and see what he had. You roll the dice there, he winds up injured. But because of the injury, the glass half full look for the Colts there is, well, now he's basically doing what option one was to begin with, which is sitting behind Gardner Minshew and learning life in the NFL and being a part of those quarterback meetings. And from his testament, he has a better feel than he did a year ago. The mental side is clicking for him. He's identifying things better in film sessions than he did a year ago. All of those are wins. And you know the athleticism that he has. And you feel like with the mechanics, if there's issues in accuracy, all of that is fixable. If that is the case for the Indianapolis Colts, they're going to be right there in the divisional race. I said it a couple weeks ago. I think this could be a two-horse race between the Colts and the Texans down the stretch of this season. In fact, after that stretch against the Lions and the Patriots, I have the Colts winning the last 5 games of the year. I fully believe that they have the capability within them and the way the schedule backs off to go on a run late and be a part of the playoffs. Does that mean they're going to win the division? The South is such a crapshoot. It's been that way for the last 4 years. Even with C.J. Stroud's ascension to that throne a season ago, it still feels like Trevor Lawrence is a mainstay in the division, that we've yet to see the best that Trevor Lawrence has to offer. And if that is the case, then all of a sudden it becomes a true battle between what the Colts are doing on the defensive end. And that's why we stressed how Laiatu Latu has to be a home run for the Colts as soon as possible because of how weak that cornerback room is outside of Juju Brents. And Chris Ballard has said time and again, he trusts that room still, that they're going to take a step forward because they were young last year and they got the experience they needed. And maybe they will. Maybe he's right. But if he's wrong and you're giving up house calls on a gamely basis, your focus shifts away from a cornerback room you already knew was broken outside of Juju Brents to where the Colts go offensively with the dynamic Anthony Richardson. On the docket today, we have a great show for you. Jeremiah Johnson is going to step in and join us. He will attempt to pass more Pacers good vibes along to me than I currently have, because this isn't a bold take to go on a ledge on. This is just the facts of where the series is. If Tyrese Haliburton misses extended time or is declared out for the series, it's a wrap. The Celtics are going to the conference finals. The Celtics are going to the NBA finals. If Tyrese Haliburton misses extended time, the Celtics are going to punch their ticket to the NBA finals and have a strong chance at raising banner number 18 for them. That's not to say the Pacers couldn't steal a game. That's not to say that the Pacers can't make a leap forward to stay alive in this series. But if he's off the board, the Boston Celtics, with Kristaps Porzingis potentially waiting in the wings, are too overwhelming to get by. We're going to take a break. We come back. Jeremiah Johnson of Bally Sports Indiana and the Sideline Guys podcast is going to stop by. Perhaps he'll be able to lighten the Pacers' mood a bit. We're here at Carb Day. So appreciative of everybody being out here to join us. If you are here as well for my namesake, Jake Query, if you're not, he'll be joining us in the second hour of the program. But a Pacers update, maybe even a Tyrese Haliburton update. Jeremiah Johnson of Bally Sports joins us. You're listening to Query and Company on Carb Day on The Fan.
Hi, it's Bob with Royal Spa. Simply said, Royal Spa hot tubs are simple.
and 107.5 The Fan. Great crowd on hand at Pagoda Plaza. We're going to be over the airwaves all day after Query and Company. It'll be the ride with JMV from 3 to 6. Hope you're a part of that, as well as JMV always hosts a rowdy bunch. Joining us now on the CarX hotline, he is the sideline reporter for Bally Sports Indiana. He is one of our favorites, and perhaps for me, he'll be the voice of optimism and the voice of reason. He is Jeremiah Johnson of Bally Sports. Jeremiah, happy Carb Day to you, my man.
Happy Carb Day. The sun is shining. The birds are singing. It's a great day. It's just a little gloomy in Pacers country, I will admit.
Jeremiah, it is a nice admittal by you. It is a factual statement that being down 2-0 is not the place the Pacers wanted to find themselves. Let's start with the initial one that I already know the answer to, but just since I have you, I'm obligated to ask it. Do we have any updates to this point on Tyrese Haliburton outside of what Rick Carlisle said last night post-game, which is left hamstring soreness, and they're going to monitor him over the next couple days?
Yeah, we do not, unfortunately, and I was actually working on your radio airwaves last night back in Indianapolis, so working with Mark Boyle and Eddie Gill, and not being there, it's hard to really know. I did read one of the articles that was just put out about an hour ago from Joe Varden, and he had said that, he got some tests done at halftime and was sore at halftime and tried to go out and play there in the third quarter, which would explain a little bit of some of the ineffectiveness maybe of the third quarter, but maybe there wasn't one specific injury like what we saw in January when he was injured when playing, oddly enough, the Boston Celtics. And so if it is a little bit of a re-aggravation, it's not good, but maybe it might not be as bad as maybe some would fear. It's the biggest question going into Game 3 because to have any chance in this series, you've got to hold home court, but you've got to have Tyrese Haliburton. So it's the big question, unfortunately, the one I don't have an answer to. And I'm not sure we'll know too much more until maybe at least 5 o'clock when the injury report for Game 3 comes out.
Do you get the sense, and I know you're just operating off your gut here, but do you get the sense that with Tyrese Haliburton, in all likelihood, it's going to come down to a game-time decision?
That's probably the optimistic view. If it's serious, you wouldn't even put it into a game-time decision.
Right.
If he's listed as questionable today, it would be one of those things where see how he feels with another day of treatment and, how is he doing in that shoot-around? Because here's the thing. He can play. If it's something he can play through and not risk further injury, then obviously he would. But that's the kind of injury that you have to be careful of, and you have to see the big picture. And I'm not just even talking about the summer and the Olympics and things like that. I mean, you do not want to have to deal with a further injury on that hamstring, considering what he already had to go through earlier this season. So, you hate to say that if it's a game-time decision, that's really good news, but that's sort of how I feel about it. If there's any risk at all, I don't know that they'll put that into his hands. And the other thing is, let's say he's 85 or 90%. Defensively, that causes real problems because the Celtics are already figuring out ways to get him in isolation. And if you're not at 100%, you're maybe hurting the team on the defensive end, even though you can help them on the offensive end. So they have a lot of things to think about: the future, his health, but also his effectiveness and how he could play in Game 3.
And I want to emphasize your point there, Jeremiah. And I know, at least I think I haven't, I have not said anything of this nature that I'm about to say in the open or at all today. This is not a question of, it's the playoffs, he needs to go. Like, hamstrings are not only the biggest buzzkill in the NBA, they also, to your point, are one of the more serious injuries in terms of complications the more that you have injuries impacting that area. And the fact that he's already gone through it once, to your point, you don't want this to be something that lingers into an off season or is something that you're at risk of re-aggravating at the beginning of next season. This is not a situation of, he can play through it. If the hamstring's shot in any capacity, there's no question about it. He's just unavailable, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, and I'm not a doctor, nor do I play one on TV, but let's look back to Game 7. Let's look back to Game 7 of the Knicks series. And OG Anunoby, while we don't know the extent of his injury, he tried to gut it out. And you could see that he couldn't even run up and down the floor. And you don't want to be in that situation. If you're anywhere close to that, it'll be a letdown if he goes out there and can't guard anyone, even if he hits a couple of shots and then has to leave after playing 5 minutes. So to me, you'd have to have a really good idea that he's going to play, be effective, and be able to play the whole game. Otherwise, you don't want to do it. And, that would be a tremendous letdown for everyone, considering how much anticipation there is for the games this weekend, to have an Eastern Conference Finals at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, and you go into this having won your last 9 games at home. So if you're fully healthy, so down 2-0, you're really in this series. But without Tyrese Haliburton, it'll be a big challenge on the rest of the team and the coaching staff to figure out the best way that they could be successful against the team. And let's be honest, this is the class of the NBA. The Boston Celtics won 64 games. Second in the East, New York won 50. So, this is a big challenge even with Tyrese Haliburton. Without him, they'll have some real difficult questions to have to answer, or not to necessarily answer, but some tough things to try to figure out in the next day.
Jeremiah Johnson is our guest, sideline reporter for Bally Sports. JJ, I know this isn't going to be difficult for you to do because you follow the team and you're close to the team, but I need you to do it especially for me. Let's say, for the sake of argument, he can't go in Game 3. Where does the offense come from? How much of an identity change is that? And why, outside of the momentum of being home at Gainbridge where they have not lost yet, why should there be a reason that they could get Game 3 if Tyrese Haliburton is off the board?
Well, let's think about this. Human nature does creep in a little bit. And while the Boston Celtics, I've already praised them, I'm going to stop doing that at this point forward, because I do not think that they are unbeatable. And if you're Boston and you have that success that you had in Game 2 and you see the Pacers, 2-time All-Stars, not available, maybe you let up just a little bit. And if they let up, the Pacers have the kind of team that can take advantage. I think back to that 2-game series that the Pacers had in December, where they played the Miami Heat and they lost the first game of the series, that Tyrese Haliburton played and played well, and then all of a sudden he was not available for Game 2, and you thought, oh, well, this is a tough way to have to go into battle at Miami against the Heat. And, T.J. McConnell, Andrew Nembhard both played fantastic, and the Pacers got a win. I think to the game in Sacramento on a difficult road trip, it was one of the most memorable wins of the season. They did that without Tyrese Haliburton. It was the game before he came back from injury and played against the Portland Trail Blazers. That night, they only had 7 or 8 players available, and Pascal Siakam had yet to join the team. So I know it's different in the playoffs, and I can't necessarily say they did it then, they can do it on Saturday night. But the home crowd is a big deal. There's a special feeling inside that building during these gold-outs. And I feel like the Pacers are also built where if you remove Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum, I know the Celtics still have good players, but maybe they don't have as much depth. The Pacers are one that 7 players can score in double figures, and if everyone else can pick up some of the scoring slack, I still think they can be competitive in Game 3.
And, JJ, with that, and by the way, I'm back.
Jake, you're here. Hi.
Thank you.
How are you?
Thank you. Just made my way back from turn number 3. I will let everybody know what's happening here and who looked good in the practice session for the degenerates that have been texting me all day. But, Jeremiah, let's go back to last night. I think the world of Jaylen Brown, and have for a long time. He's a great player, obviously. You don't have to be an expert to know that, because I'm not. But for Indiana, in terms of, it's a little pick your poison between Brown and Tatum. Did the Pacers try to mix up different defensive scenarios to offset what happened with Jaylen Brown? Or in doing that, are you then just shifting the big night to Jason Tatum?
Yeah, right now I'm more fearful of Jaylen Brown than I am Jason Tatum, as crazy as that is. As crazy as that
I don't think that's crazy, though, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it just seems like Jaylen Brown is more involved in the offense every single time down the floor. He's a little bit more physical. He can take the contact. And Jason Tatum is streaky, and you saw that last night. Now, my big concern, it was crazy at halftime. It was one of those games where you thought there was no way, watching or listening as I was with Mark and Eddie, that you could tell that was a 6-point deficit. However, you looked at the box score, and you saw that Jason Tatum only had 4 points. And so no matter what, a player like that is going to somehow figure out a way to get 20 to 25 points in a game of that magnitude. But I still am more concerned about Brown. And the other concern is this. They have at least one of those 2 guys on the court at all times. So if they're both on the court, you do have to pick your poison. If they're subbing a little bit, then you can really maybe try to load up. But this is where Drew Holiday and Derek White are so big for the Celtics. So, again, when they have Kristaps Porzingis, I've not seen a starting 5 as complete as what they have. Without him, I do think they're beatable. But, again, if Drew Holiday's going to hit shots, if Derek White's going to hit shots, if Peyton Pritchard comes off the bench and hits a couple of 3-pointers, it's really hard to double up on Brown and leave those guys wide open because that's what they want. They want those catch-and-shoot threes. They'd like to shoot 50 threes a game, and if they're making them, it's tough. What you would say is maybe those guys aren't as effective at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, and that's why I think the home court can tilt it just in Indiana's favor a little bit if they can do some of the other things.
Jeremiah, in terms of last night, Jeremiah Johnson is our guest for Bally Sports. I actually understood it. I thought it made sense, but I wanted you to kind of paraphrase for folks just the rationale that Rick Carlisle went with in getting away from, obviously, the starters late in the fourth once it was into double digits. I think there were people that thought, hey, it's still within reach here, 15-17. You get Doug McDermott for a lot of minutes. You take Siakam out for a lot of minutes in the fourth quarter. And then Rick Carlisle's explanation, can you summarize kind of Carlisle's strategy in that? Because I don't think it was necessarily the proverbial white flag that people think it was.
Yeah, I don't think he was giving up, but at some point, when you know that Tyrese Haliburton is not coming back, you have to make sure you take care of your other players, and you have to be able to see if this is a long series, you got to make sure you got fresh guys for Game 3. So I understand some of the frustration from Pacers fans, but I'll specifically point to the Pascal Siakam situation. He was the reason that they were in the game, and I think his absence was maybe the biggest reason of frustration fans. But he kept the Pacers in the game. He went to the bench for about a minute, I think, in the third quarter, and so went on a run, and they put him back into the game. And Rick Carlisle said he's very tired. And to just expect, and we hear him use this line, and I think it makes sense, and it's important for people to realize this. He says men, not machines. You cannot just expect Pascal Siakam to be as effective carrying such a heavy load without Tyrese Haliburton and do it for 42 minutes. Now, I know it's the playoffs, and no one wants to hear that you have to take a break. However, you do have those two games coming up at home. And so, it's not waving the white flag. It's giving some other guys an opportunity. And sometimes when you put those guys in the game, it's the same thing I said to Jimmy a moment ago. Maybe the Celtics would have let up. What if Doug would have hit 2 or 3 three-pointers, and all of a sudden you get it down to 8 or 9, and the Celtics just let up because of what they were going against? It's tough. A coach has to make a number of different decisions, and I understand the Pacers fans' frustration, but if Pascal Siakam can be much more energized and ready for Game 3, then maybe that break that he and Neesmith and Nembhard got at the end of Game 2 can help out.
Jeremiah Johnson is our guest, sideline reporter for Bally Sports Indiana. Jeremiah, I've just been trying to experiment on the fly. The way I see it, if Haliburton misses time, your initial options would be Nembhard, Turner, Neesmith, Siakam, and McConnell, or perhaps Nembhard, maybe Ben Shepherd gets the call, Turner, Neesmith, and Siakam. The other option I could think of would be something involving Obi Toppin in the starting lineup. Of those three, where do you see the best course of starting parts the Pacers could put together to set the tone in Game 3 if, again, Tyrese Haliburton, who we don't know his status yet, misses Game 3?
Yeah, you hope that this answer is not necessary. But if it is, I think the strategy that I would go with is put your best defensive lineup on the floor. Because even without Tyrese Haliburton, I still think there's a confidence with this team that they can be effective offensively, but they're getting beat too much defensively, and that's off the dribble, and that's also on the glass. And so depending upon the player that you put in the lineup, it could help you in the backcourt, it could help you on the glass. My thought right now to the players that you mentioned would be Ben Shepherd. And because if you look at a backcourt then with Nembhard, Shepherd, and Neesmith then on the wing, you've got three guys that are a little more physical, that can get into some of these great scorers defensively, and then you figure out the other end of the floor. With McConnell, he's a little bit like Siakam in what I just said. I mean, it's natural for people to see TJ play so well in these 5 or 6 minute bursts, but I've seen the team all season. There have been some times when TJ McConnell's played great, and then at some point in the fourth quarter, if you push the minutes a little bit too much, those jumpers in the lane, instead of falling in after bouncing on the rim, they fall out. And so while I know that TJ McConnell will do everything in his powers to be ready to play 38 to 40 minutes, I think your sweet spot there without Haliburton is probably in that 28 to 30-minute range. So he can still do TJ McConnell things in the game. So I think I'm going to focus on defense. And then the other thing is the Celtics have some injuries in the front court, They're playing small. If they're going to do that, you've got to figure out a way to punish them. So I probably answered this question in two different ways. I still want to start the game with a little more defense in the backcourt, but then there are times where if you've got some bigs that can punish the Celtics inside, specifically Pascal Siakam, but maybe more for Miles Turner than you got in Game 2, you've got to take advantage of that as well.
JJ, we are at the Pagoda Plaza on Carb Day. It is packed, and I'm looking amongst the sea of humanity, and in the very back I can see about a 6'4" guy wearing a Charlie Cardinal outfit that is topless and on a cell phone. You look good, brother.
Wait, how's Charlie Cardinal topless? Charlie has feathers.
Well,
and a big...
the guy. Listen, it got hot. It got hot, right? So it's party up top, business down low. Charlie Cardinal, Jeremiah Johnson, Bally Sports, and how about everybody getting a toast right now of a little Miller Lite on Carb Day? There we go. All right, JJ, we will look for you game number 3 and say hello as the Pacers try to get it back to 2-1. Appreciate the time.
My message to all the fans, enjoy Carb Day, enjoy Race Day, and enjoy the Pacers games on Saturday and Monday. Jake, you know, we've been waiting a long time to have a weekend like this. I know it's the enthusiasm dampened just a little bit by the Pacers situation, but the series is not over. Let's enjoy ourselves. Let's have a great weekend, everyone.
Key word, Jeremiah, for everybody with Pacers is pace. Pace yourself today on Carb Day. We'll take a quick break, come back. I'll let you know what I observed in the practice session and what we might see for the 108th running.
The biggest party on dirt is back at Eldora Speedway, July 17th through 20th for the Kings Royal and High Limit Jokers Jackpot. Buy your tickets today at EldoraSpeedway.com.
Reason number 52 to choose Diamonds Direct.
huge crowd on Carb Day. Brendan King will get you caught up on everything that's going on the track, and then on the outside of that, practice inning at 1 o'clock. And believe me, I understand it. Everybody wants to know who's looking good, who's looking out. I'm very flattered that people ask me that. There's a bunch of people that are going to have the same intel on that because I've been telling everybody the same thing. But I did see a few things of interest in that practice session that I think are going to be something to watch on Sunday in the race. We will let you know what that is after Brendan's update. Practice completing at 1 o'clock from the world's greatest race course, Carb Day Edition, Aquarium Company.
The Ride with JMV.
Elio Castroneves joins us. I'm just kind of curious about this.
We've got Scott Agnes joining us just a second, but I do want to let people, and we'll talk a lot about this between now and 3 o'clock, but if you grew up on the north side of Indianapolis and at any point we had a class together at kindergarten through IU, then it would appear as though at some point you've asked me intel for your wagering purposes of the Indianapolis 500-mile race, which I greatly appreciate that people ask. So
I've done that too, and I didn't fit either of those criteria.
Right.
So
well, you're a degenerate gambler.
That is true.
So here is the official Jake Query breakdown after watching Carb Day practice from turn number 3. We were up in turn number 3.
I need to get the sports book open. Hold on.
That's right.
Okay, go ahead.
The reality is this. The Penske Chevrolets are fast. We know that. They're in the front row. Right behind them, the Arrow McLaren Chevrolets. And Alexander Rossi had to tinker with a few things on his car at the outset of the practice. But the narrative going into practice was that Chevrolet had a huge mile-an-hour advantage, a huge horsepower advantage over the Hondas. But that was in a qualifying setup. The question was, can Honda in race situations offset that speed? And for a couple of the Hondas, the answer that I saw was yes. And that's because in race traffic, they were able to have good speed. And keep in mind, in the race, you are always running behind dirty air. And the Hondas look pretty good in that. Now, I would still say that your front runners are the 3 Penskes, as well as Rossi, Pato O'Ward, and Kyle Larson. Now, this is all assuming that weather runs it to the point where it's an uninterrupted 200-mile or 200-lap race, which I realize is probably a lot to expect. But there were a couple of the Honda cars that I looked at and I watched in practice, and they looked extremely comfortable in traffic, extremely comfortable. And last year when I watched Joseph Newgarden go on the outside line the entire practice and told people Newgarden's going to win the race because I could tell that he was comfortable where he was able to put his car. Here are the drivers, to me, that looked the most comfortable in that session and being able to put their car where they wanted to. This is just to my observation. That is not to say gospel by any stretch of the imagination. In no particular order, Helio Castroneves went various lines into turn number 3 and looked extremely comfortable in his car. And I thought he looked like he could put his car uninterrupted where he wanted to put it when he needed to put it there. Colton Herta may have the best race car in the field. Not qualifying car, but race car. That Gamebridge car in traffic, Colton Herta looks fast, and he looks stuck to the inside line. I think Colton Herta can make some noise coming through the field. And then 2 others that jump out, and it goes without saying, Scott Dixon and Alex Palou. Dixon and Palou looked very good in traffic, and they looked very good once they got out in front. Palou ran with Renus VK on several of occasions, and they swapped the lead, and Palou looked comfortable in clean air. So those are the Hondas that I would look at. In terms of the Penskes, I thought in the outset of the practice session, Newgarden looked incredibly comfortable. And then as the session moved along, the car that I thought looked the most comfortable was Will Power. I thought Will Power looked fast, and I thought Will Power looked like he was able to move around traffic, lay back when he needed to, go when he needed to. A lot of storylines to watch, and then the weather's going to come into play.
If I may, for my fellow degenerates, that's Helio Castroneves at plus 2,500 to win the race. Scott Dixon at plus 1,800 right now. Alex Palou at plus 1,200. Colton Herta plus 1,000, Will Power plus 650, and Joseph Newgarden plus 550. Of course, you can shop odds around depending on where your sportsbook home is.
So,
degeneracy covered.
That's the way I see it right now.
All right.
Now, we shall see what happens from there. Last night, Pacers and Celtics, game number 2, and that was one of those that in the beginning of the game looked like the Pacers felt good in traffic, and then all of a sudden they hit dirty air, fell back a little bit. They were not able to make up that ground. Lead stayed in that 15 to 17 range. Scott Agnes joins us now from Fieldhouse Files, and Scott, reality is Indiana, it would exert energy, get within that 6 to 8 range, and then fall back. And I think then the Tyrese Haliburton injury comes into play, obviously. But Rick Carlisle deciding in the 4th quarter, Siakam, no Haliburton on the floor. McDermott gets a lot of minutes. Your overall observations.
Yeah, in that 4th quarter, I was surprised, Jake, because you don't often see the white flag thrown out so early. Maybe out here, but not in a game like that, not in a postseason game. And
but do you think he was waving it, or was there a strategy there?
If it was a strategy, it was a bigger picture saying, all right, we just do not have it this night. In the bigger context is this was the Pacers' 4th game in 7 days, 3rd different city, and the first 2 games were must-wins, right? To keep their season alive, Game 6 and Game 7 against New York. So what a coach and what a team can feel that we cannot is that mental fatigue, that physical fatigue that maybe they have gone through, plus perhaps a hangover from that first game where they should have had. That said, I still would have liked an opportunity for them to try for another 3 or 4 minutes. Say you get to that 5-minute mark, 6-minute mark, Jake, and it's still a 17-point game. I'm all for it.
Okay, now, Jaylen Brown getting 40. I asked Jeremiah this same thing, Scott, but I'll ask you. Do you shift defensively to try to do something there, or if you're doing so, are you then just simply surrendering Jason Tatum?
Yeah, that's the trouble with a team so talented with the Celtics. It's pick your poison. And if Porzingis was out there, that would add a whole nother layer to it. I think you focus on Tatum in general. If Brown goes off and you can contain everybody else, I don't think that's something that bothers you too much. The trouble was the Pacers just did not have it going. For as bad of night that they had, they were still within 4 late 3rd quarter. So I don't think you're too concerned, Jake, about what the Celtics had done. It was more self-contained, self-inflicted wounds, and mistakes that just getting out-rebounded in that first quarter, I thought, Jimmy, was so unacceptable.
Well, so, Scott, here's my issue with the Jaylen Brown of it all. Like, he has overcome narrative adversity. When you look at the last 2 postseasons, oh, he can't operate with his left hand. Oh, is he really the star player that Jason Tatum deserves? And now here he is, a 40-point performance last night. The bigger issue with his scoring is this is a team that is a high-volume three-point shooting team. And your thought is, okay, well, if you take that away and no Porzingis, where's their paint threat? He's been their paint threat. 66 points in 2 games. 34 of the 66 have come in the painted area. How do the Pacers fix that aspect of it, of him seemingly getting to the paint with ease and backing down all challengers?
Yeah, I thought among the most concerning things last night was the easiness of which they got to the paint without restriction. Like, the Pacers had no force against that, even early on in the game. I think 22 of the Celtics' first 40 points are scored in the paint. A lot of that, in large part, due to Miles Turner picking up 2 fouls in 5 minutes. He only played 24 minutes, so him being in there will certainly help. Isaiah Jackson had played solid throughout this postseason. I didn't think he did quite well, much like anyone outside of Siakam in the other game. And then you just need to see a better individual performance. How many times did we just see them hunt Tyrese Haliburton in a pick and roll like we've seen all season, and there just wasn't a matchup or a communication that I think you need to see. So it's not going to be easy, but I think so much of it is just on the Pacers given a want-to factor.
Jimmy, do you have a cooler that doubles as a seat?
I do. I got it as a groomsman gift. Shout out to my good friend Nick Kuntz. He gave it to all his groomsmen. It is a cooler, but when you put it down, it also works as a seat. How about that?
Now, does it have like backpack straps on it?
Just a regular European shoulder bag type strap.
That's lovely.
Yeah, right?
And you have Miller Lights in there?
I do have Miller Lights in there. It's Miller Lite Carb Day after all.
Yeah, well, every once in a while we got to get everybody's attention here in the Pagoda Plaza that it's Miller Lite Carb Day, and because our bosses are here, we got to let them know that people are excited that we're here. Scott Agnes, did you go out and watch practice at all?
I did a little bit, but then I ultimately found the Larry O'Brien Trophy of the NBA Finals, and so I followed that around for a story I'm going to do.
It's here?
It is here. Yes, absolutely.
Wow, where'd they have it?
I just left them in the garage. They were waiting for drivers to come back. I took them through the Firestone garage, got a nice little setup.
Are you surprised that Twitter account? Are you surprised that Twitter account hasn't taken off yet? Like, they've tried this thing for 2 years, and the social media following for the Larry O'Brien Trophy has not been there.
For the old, you're talking about what?
So the Larry O'Brien Trophy, they decided to
That's the NBA Championship
Trophy. My apologies. They decided to create a Twitter account about 2 or 3 years ago, and Scott's right. They've taken it to different places where it meets the Stanley Cup or it meets the Kentucky Derby winning horse, and they're having this whole social media campaign, and it is alarming to me how low the follower count is on this trophy.
I figured it out, Jimmy, though. After walking around with it for about an hour, they need to hand something out to inform fans about it.
I would
because
agree.
Even I asked about it, and if they had a QR code or if they had something for them to recognize it, that would be a big help. And let me add some more context to it. Just in the last 2 months, normally they just went last May. They were out here for the track as well with the Larry O'Brien Trophy. It is a replica, meaning this is not one that the players get, but it is the exact specifications. It's made by Tiffany. It's a 24 karat. Just in the last couple of weeks, he told me, they went to the PGA, the Tom Brady Netflix roast.
Saw that.
Fat Joe concert, a Drake concert, F1, Anthony Edwards golf tournament, UFC, and they're doing it the 2 months leading up to the NBA Finals.
In the interest of ongoing rap beef, they also need to link up with Kendrick Lamar at some point to balance things out. Scott Agnes is our guest. You can find his work, of course, on Fieldhouse Files. Scott, we were going through potential lineup changes that the Pacers could implement. Again, for those of you just joining us, there's no official update yet on Tyrese Haliburton. It's still listed as left hamstring soreness. We talked to Jeremiah Johnson a little bit earlier. Look out for that injury report at 5 o'clock and see what his status is going in, and then that'll give us a clearer picture if he's a game-time decision or if it winds up being something that holds him out a game or two. But potential lineup changes of these options, Scott, I want you to tell me which one works and why it works better than the others.
Okay.
The way I see it, for Tyrese Haliburton's absence, you're either going T.J. McConnell, Andrew Nembhard, Miles Turner, Aaron Nesmith, Pascal Siakam. You're going Andrew Nembhard, Ben Shepherd, Miles Turner, Aaron Nesmith, Pascal Siakam. Or, and this one I haven't fully figured out, some way where Obi Toppin is inserted into that starting lineup. Because, again, we're just throwing stuff at a chalkboard and hoping it sticks. Of the options that give the Pacers the best chance, again, if Tyrese Haliburton can't go for Game 3, what gives them the best chance to, from a mathematical standpoint, save their season?
Yeah, the interesting one is the latter one, right? It's just, let's just junk this up, maybe go small at times, mix it up, and throw Obi Toppin. My first indication would be Ben Shepherd at the 2. It's defense.
Yeah.
It's a guy you don't have to worry about playing hard. He's as fresh as anyone in the rotation, and that would allow for TJ to still run that second unit and go in and out there. But at this point, if you're talking about that, it's still challenging the rest of the way.
Hey, my favorite guy, my favorite fan here at the Speedway, fan is probably the wrong word, listener at the Speedway, is directly across from us. Everything that you guys are saying, this guy standing in front of me is nodding his head, making us look smart, okay? And I'm enthused by that. I'm like, this guy is validating our brilliance, except for that he's wearing a White Sox hat, which makes me question his own ability. But I love it because July 10th, I'm going to the White Sox game. We go one game every year, and I think this – what's your name? TJ?
TJ?
CJ. All right.
DJ.
DJ.
Got him.
Well, we
Third
got it
time
eventually.
Hey,
Yeah,
you wouldn't believe how much money I had to pay DJ to get him here.
Let me tell you, DJ is going to be the only other guy at the White Sox game on July 10th along with Shannon and I. He can just ride up with us, right? We got the whole section to ourselves. Anyway, as you guys were, sorry about that.
Yeah, I mean, so, but the lineup tinkering, is there anything about lineup tinkering for the Pacers that can get a game? Because if Tyrese Haliburton's totally off the board, and I hated to say it today, it's a wrap. It's over. If Tyrese is done, the Celtics are going to the finals. It's just a matter of if it's 4 or if it's 5. How much lineup tinkering and flexibility is there realistically for Rick Carlisle and company? And if you say Doug McDermott, Scott, you're leaving.
Wait, is it the fourth quarter again? No. So first of all, it's not just a hamstring injury for Tyrese as well. I think an underrated factor that was not covered enough on the TV broadcast last night was he took a hard fall into the middle of his
Carlisle
chest
said that post-game,
in
right?
his first quarter. He spent halftime back in the medical x-ray room getting that checked on top of having to fight through this hamstring strain. The disappointing thing in all this is just the day before, both he and Rick Carlisle talking outside the hotel saying, hey, the back issue, it's gone.
That's good.
It's over for right now. But just in following injuries for decades, a couple decades now, what has he had, right? He had a hamstring strain that led to the back. He tweaked an ankle.
Yeah.
Those are all things that, generally speaking, are all connected. My goodness.
Doing a flyover practice, in case you're curious.
Everybody needs practice on Carb Day. Nobody's left behind.
But Jimmy, to your point, I don't think there's an automatic way that they'll just try to junk it up. I think it's going to go back to this team having to outplay them and get those rebounds that they did not do in Game 2.
Yeah.
Corbin, I don't know if you have access to it. You can let me know in my ear if you know the breaking news sounder. Does Corbin have the breaking news sounder by any chance? I don't know if we have it there or not.
It's on the hotkey page, so you should.
It's on the hotkey page, I'm told, the sounder for breaking news. If not, then, Jimmy, you can just facsimilate the breaking news sounder. Go ahead.
You have to do it. Thank you, Corbin.
Breaking news from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Scott Agnes just pooped himself. Right?
Wait, what?
The flyover.
Yeah, the flyover seemed to wake up Scott Agnes all of a sudden. The Pagoda Plaza came roaring to life when all of a sudden the flyover practice took place. Which reminds me, by the way, I will tell you the quick story, and I can say it now because the gentleman is no longer working in town. He was new, so he gets an excuse. When I was working at a television station in town, I'll simply say it at that, we had a new news director. And the new news director was the Brickyard 400. This was like when the Brickyard was at its apex, late 90s, early 2000s. And our new news director had started like in early August. So he literally had first go around with the Speedway or anything else. And back then, this was pre-cell phone days, everybody had pagers. And you knew, if you ever got a page that said 911 page, that meant all hands on deck, everybody to the station right now. Like something terrible is happening or huge is happening or whatever, like all hands on deck. And the only time that in that tenure that I got a 911 page was about 3 days before the Brickyard. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, like what is going on? And we're all calling each other, what are you hearing, what's going on? We all got to get in there. You had like an hour to get in. It's like you're on call basically. And the news director says, I don't know what's going on, but we are under attack because there is a stealth bomber circling over Hamilton County right now. People are like, hey, they got a thing here called the Speedway, and they do this thing called a flyover, and they practice it. Spencer, what's up? They practice the flyover, and that all of a sudden.
Do you think he sent that from under a desk? Like,
yes. Literally, he thought we were under attack. Indianapolis is under attack. The stealth is, and which leads to the other thing of like, wait a minute, if the stealth was going to attack somewhere, it would not be a city within its own country, right? So like we were not actually under attack. But yes,
that's good stuff.
And that flyover definitely got people's attention. Anyway, as you guys worry about the game.
Yeah, and what people don't realize, too, is above us is a tent. So
right,
you don't
so you
see
didn't
the
have a
full
visual
context
chance.
You
of
heard
it
it
coming in. But you heard it right away, and it got me.
Where does if they insert McConnell into the starting lineup,
yep,
and you're looking at, instead of probably 17 minutes a game, let's say 28 to 30, how much does the efficiency deplete for him? Or Scott Van Pelt's glowing optimism last night on Late Night Sports Center, McConnell has that dog in him. He would welcome the chip on his shoulder and will rise to the occasion. From what you know about TJ, where is the line between the heart of him and, from the data, the efficiency might fall?
Yeah, he can give you about 30 minutes, I think, at that level. Now, for 3 or 4 games in a row, it's more difficult. I always go with about 26 minutes.
Yeah.
Is his ideal range to talk about his efficiency and that hard play that he does off the bench and the burst of energy. With, by the way, outside of Siakam, we didn't see that from any of the guys.
Second unit got cooked last night.
That was concerning.
Yeah, and especially when that is supposed to be, Tyrese Haliburton said it, Rick Carlisle said it, that is supposed to be a bread and butter difference maker for why you put a couple of coins towards the Pacers side of the ledger for why they could make some real noise here in the conference finals.
Do we have the breaking news sounder by chance, Corbin? Breaking news, I'm told that the Thunderbirds are doing a couple more roundies, just so everybody knows. The crowd goes crazy.
Cheers.
Over the thought. We have no idea if they really are or not. I just said that to get DJ and the boys excited over here, right? It worked. It worked. That's what we're doing here on Carb Day. That's what it's all about. Like this we're just free flowing here, right? By the way, you guys were asking about a health update on Tyrese Haliburton, right? There is no update as of right now.
Correct,
Scott? We also need a health update on Andy Sweeney. Can we get any sort of an update?
Saw him before the show started.
Okay.
He was stable. He was coherent, which is saying something considering the fact, Jake, we had a curveball. Somebody supplied Patron to the broadcast table.
So how thick was the tongue? Was it did you notice any tongue thickness?
I wasn't close enough to be able to observe tongue thickness. I'm sorry. I can't confirm or deny.
Okay. I figured Andy would be hanging in the area, right?
Yes. He said he would be around.
Schmoozing with the people.
I will quote, he said he was seeking out debauchery, to which I told him, you don't have to go far.
Yeah, I mean, come on, man.
Wow.
Yeah, Kevin
Cam
last year.
says KB
well, last
open
year,
a can
here's
before
the thing. So Kevin Bowen's
Andy.
no moron. Last year when we were here.
He said no moron, by the way. I
Kevin,
talked over Jake. He said no moron, for the record.
Yeah. Kevin last year cracked open a beer at like 7:05 when I was doing the show with him. But he paced himself. Right? Kevin's Stingray Rob earlier today said, you know what, the thing I learned in my rookie campaign was patience. It's a long race, right? It's a marathon, not a sprint. Long race. The same holds true for those that are out here indulging, right? Like look at DJ. DJ's just pacing himself, right? Just pacing himself. He either is on beer 6 or 15. I'm not sure. It depends on. He held up 2 hands there. I'm not sure which one. But I'm just saying he's pacing himself, right? It's what you got to do.
It's a marathon, not a sprint, Jake.
Scott, do you believe that they will push Haliburton?
No, you can't. I mean, here's the other thing to keep in mind, especially going into where he's supposed to be playing with Team USA. He's been playing basketball all the way since August.
Right.
And so he's had this injury since January 8th. It's clearly a re-aggravation.
Okay, see, that's what I was going to say is, and I want to make clear here, this is not me like doing revisionist history or I told you so or whatever else. I'm not saying that. Mm-hmm. But is it possible that what we saw yesterday was the result of the fact that he was not 100% healed from the original injury?
Yeah, I think that's the safe assumption there because...
And how much of that goes on, because I talked about this yesterday, and I asked Eddie Gill, who I love, but I didn't mean to put him in a bad spot. I could put you in the spot because it's not a bad spot for you because you're not tied to the team. How much does the league have to really evaluate the 65-game threshold, which at its core tried to curb load management? And I get that, but you have guys like Tyrese Haliburton, like Joel Embiid, who were fighting to make All-NBA, and maybe that's part of the reason he rushed back was because, heck, I'd probably rush back for $41 million more. Oh,
100%. We all would.
Yeah.
So we can't fault him
at all
for that. And he got it, by the way, so congratulations to him. But the challenge in all that is, one, he also rushed back to try to play with Pascal Siakam.
Sure.
That tells you how much he just wanted to get back out there and get off to a very good start with a new, hopefully, guy that will be with him for the foreseeable future here. But, yeah, you got to believe you didn't return completely healthy, and then all the other injuries, that low back strain or soreness that has bothered him for at least 8 games on the pregame injury report. On top of he tweaked an ankle, all those are compounded by the fact of right now they're not getting they are having a quick recovery time. Not getting 2 days between games like there is in the Eastern Conference Finals, and they're having to travel. So while they are traveling first class, and they do have, 4 athletic trainers and all those different things, physical therapists, massage therapists, the reality is a hamstring strain like this simply needs time. It's not like an ankle, tape it up and play through pain tolerance. Hamstrings are one of the worst to try to play through.
Selfish question on this end, just for my viewing habits, it has nothing to do with the Pacers except for the fact that it's a Tyrese Haliburton question. Do you have a vibe of whether or not he withdraws from Team USA?
Too early for that.
Okay.
I think
when would be a good timeline for that kind of question? June?
Another month, yeah.
Okay.
So when that will get started in earnest would be in early July with training camp. I think it starts July 6th to the 10th before they head overseas. So you would assume a decision would have to be made by July 1, roughly. And so you can see how this injury pans out, see what a month of rest does for him. The bigger issues, too, because, by the way, there's a 12-man roster, and he's probably 11 or 12 on that roster. The bigger questions and unlikelihood of them playing, Kawhi Leonard didn't finish the playoffs. Joel Embiid somehow managed to play. Those guys, I think, will have a more difficult time in making their decision than even a guy like Tyrese.
I'm fascinated to see what they do from that roster standpoint. And, again, this is a conversation for a month from now, but, maybe a guy like Jalen Brunson or somebody like that didn't make the roster.
That'd be the obvious go-to to replace him.
So,
did you notice how I think it was Game 7 at Madison Square Garden, Tyrese, who is a king of WWE, loves storylines, loves drama. I did notice he was wearing USA-colored shoes while playing in New York against Jalen Brunson.
That's good stuff.
Hey, I've got a question for you guys that I'm going to do on the spot. I'm going to put you on the spot right here in front of everybody.
That's my life.
Okay.
But thank you.
Scott, what do you got going on the rest of the day?
Go back to the media center and write a little bit and wait for...
Are you writing about the Larry O'Brien trophy?
I will, and then Tyrese's injury as well.
So Connor Daly and Dennis Reinbold are going to join in about 20 minutes. They have a group photo for the radio network that's taking place about 5 minutes from now at Victory Podium. If I sprint over there, and by the way, Vicky Wrights is here. Vicky, right here, baby. Oh, I love it. Listen, before I go do my photo for the network, I'm going to tell the story again. I tell it every year. Vicky Rice right here, who is a walking saint among us, okay? Doug Rice and Dick Rice are 2 of the greatest legends in the history of this speedway because this place is all about friendships, family, stories, connections, and traditions. And for years, there were a group of guys that would meet on Mussman, the Dogs of Mussman they called themselves. They would pitch in, they would buy a jalopy, they would try to get the pole position in the turn 3 or wherever they could put their car to be able to watch the race. And literally, they would reconvene every year with friends from around the country that they saw once a year. The beauty of this place, for all of you people listening right now, the beauty of this place is the fact that you are friends amongst 300,000 people when you're here, and it's a kinship and a friendship that you feel every single time you come to this place, and nothing speaks it better than the Dogs of Musman. I want everybody right now that's got a Miller Lite or whatever you have in your hand right now, do a toast for Doug Rice, Dick Rice, the Dogs of Musman, and Vicky Rice, because that's exactly what this place is all about. There's nothing like it like the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So, sorry for the impromptu rant, but it's the most special thing in terms of when Doug Rice passed and you guys had me come out and speak about what this place means. It was one of the highlights of my career, and I will forever be indebted to it. So carry on with all of your friends and drink like you've known each other forever. All right, guys, that good?
Yeah, good
all
stuff.
Right. Scott, can you carry on for like 20 minutes?
Yeah, I got you.
No, you do what you got to do.
All right.
But I will be right back, guys. Is that cool? All right.
Sounds like a plan. We will step aside. Again,
I didn't
still
clear
to come.
this with the bosses, so I hope when I get fired.
Still to come, we'll have a conversation with Connor Daly. Dennis Ridebold should be fun around 1:45. We'll get set up there. Perhaps Scott will hang for another segment. We'll dive a little bit more into Pacers Celtics Game 3. How do the Sirs respond, and how can they do it if Tyrese Haliburton is unavailable? We will discuss that and more. We come back. It's Query & Company, live from Carb Day at Pagoda Plaza.
A slow network is no network for business. That's why more choose Comcast Business. And now we're introducing Ultimate Speed for Business, our fastest plans yet. We're up to 12 times faster than Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile. And existing
Let's go, baby. Woo! Continuing with us for another segment is Scott Agnes of Fieldhouse Files. Pacers trail 0-2 in the best of 7 against the Boston Celtics. Scott, we talked a lot last segment about potential lineup changes. Wow, as there's another flyover this time.
Jimmy, I felt every part of that one.
I felt all the way down to my toes.
Like I have never
entire
felt
flyover.
before.
I will say,
wow.
And to Scott's credit, because both of us stayed stoic, at least you could kind of sense that one coming.
Yeah.
Whereas the first one, it was like, holy cow, where did that come from? So
it was holy something.
It
that's
was.
For sure.
I can't say what it was, but yes, it was indeed a flyover or two. Makes the vibes immaculate tonight, Carb Day. Pacers fans hoping tomorrow the vibes are immaculate at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, as they've been all postseason. The only team remaining in the NBA playoffs that have yet to lose at home. That is the positive swing. The negative swing, of course, and we'll continue to monitor this. If you haven't already, follow Scott Agnes, turn notifications on. Of course, you know national writers, you can turn notifications on as well, but that's where your phone is. Your eyes are going to be glued to your phone, so to speak, to figure out the status of Tyrese Haliburton. Let's operate for this conversation underneath the impression he does not go game 3. Again, I want to clarify this for everybody. That's not official. We are operating under a hypothetical that Tyrese Haliburton will not be available. We still don't know yet what his official status will be. With that said, I asked you about the starting lineup and the changes that happened there.
Yeah.
This might be a moot point because the second unit got thrashed last night. But what happens with that second unit if it's TJ McConnell as a starter? Who do you point to? Or is he now playing extended minutes, staying out there with the second unit if he is upgraded to a starter?
Yeah, Jimmy, I think more than anything, it's boosting everybody else's minutes. First of all, it's got to be Siakam. He's got to play 40 minutes for you to have a chance to win. He only played, I think, 32 this past game. For him to be out there is key because he's had the mismatch with Kristaps Porzingis being out, and he is kind of expected to return in the series. But if, let's say, the Celtics are up 3-0, if you're Boston, you have no reason to force him back in, say, a game 4. But I think you just up everybody's minutes more than anything there. But Siakam's got to play significant. Miles has to play a better game. And because let's take the bench. Who else are you going to outside of the 8-man rotation? I don't think there's anyone that you rather lean on more than the group in front of them.
I'm at a point, and this isn't like a hot take by any means, but if they're looking for bodies to throw out there, I said it in the Milwaukee series.
I bet I know where you're going with this.
You know where I'm going with this. I said it last night. If we're throwing stuff at a wall, no more Doug McDermott. I'd rather see a Jarris Walker. I don't care. I don't care how it matches up. If we're just throwing stuff, I've seen enough of Doug McDermott. I get it. I've been told since he was acquired, hey, he's going to hit threes. I'm waiting for that moment. I'm waiting for that moment to happen. At this stage, if you're just throwing stuff, give me Jarris Walker. That's where I would adjust it. By the way, Jake Query is back from
Thank you guys. Sorry about that.
Brief picture day. Is that what I call it? Is picture day fine? Or
well,
no?
yes, picture day's fine.
Okay.
We do this like every 5 years, and we did a photo, and I managed to do it like within the commercial break. I'm super proud of myself. Got over there. It's always difficult to wade through all the throngs of people that want pictures, but I'm being sarcastic. So we get up there, we do the photo. Daenerys with me. Daenerys sitting right here, and I go, hey, we got to go do the photo. He goes, when are we doing that? And I go, like, right now. So we go do the photo, we leave, and then they're like, oh, the engineers are late. It's the way it always works, right? I said, well, something must have broken because they're just not getting here. So our engineers, which are fabulous, Paul Levitt and Rick Evans are the best, literally the best. But they were out working on the turns, making sure everything's good.
So you didn't ask them if anything snuck up on them? You didn't bring out that kind of language? That didn't happen? Okay.
That's typically my MO. But so they got there. We had to redo the photo and then came back. So my apologies, guys, for that.
All good. We kept it afloat. Last conversation we had with Scott Agnes of Fieldhouse Files, hanging with us for a little bit longer here, was what happens to the bench if you were forced to take one of those bench pieces and insert them in the starting lineup. If again, Tyrese Haliburton has to miss
Who would
game
it be? Did you guys already discuss that?
What I was basically saying is you up TJ McConnell's minutes. I think I would lean towards starting Ben Shepherd because of what you need defensively, and you worry less about what he's just your safe guy out there.
This
he
feels
has
like
the high IQ type of guy.
It feels like a foolish question because he's no doubt proven himself this postseason, but is he ready for that? Or is it just ultimately a baptism by fire and sorry, Rook, go out there and we just need you?
I think it's best case scenario. It's the best option right now. It's not to say he's not ready for it, but it is a lot to ask of him. You understand that, and I think Ben does too. But he's shot better than like 40% from three in the postseason. And what's weird right now is the Pacers are not getting those three-point looks that they traditionally have. They're only averaging like 29 attempts.
How much of that
in
is
this
Boston
series.
defensively?
There's a lot of that, for sure. And I thought that's a good way we saw Tyrese adapt in Game 2 in particular, Jimmy, was he took the mid-range shot. So often he's hesitant for mid-range. It's either layup or that step-back three. I like that mid-range from Tyrese, but unfortunately that's actually where he got hurt there, defending a mid-range.
Yeah, I think Shepherd, to be honest with you, Shepherd to me reminds me a little bit of what we saw in terms of the growth of Nembhard. You know, Nembhard earlier in his career, and I say that, I mean, he's still early in his career, Andrew Nembhard. But Nembhard now looks comfortable, right? Like Nembhard now, between the mid-range game and defensively and the other things that are asked of inbounds late in the game in Game 1, leaves a little to be desired. But Andrew Nembhard, to me, does look now like he belongs on the floor. And Shepherd, at the beginning of the year, you were still feeling your way through. He is now right on the cusp, Scott, of being a guy that each time he goes out, you don't notice the fact that he's out there because it's not a surprise per se that he's getting those minutes. And this only would be good for him. Now, it doesn't maybe help you necessarily get over the top this year, but it is invaluable stuff for you moving forward in what was originally thought to be a building block year anyway.
Entirely. Again, I repeat here, before the season, not the coaching staff or the front office mentioned the word playoffs. The players did. So the Pacers have already advanced further than we expected to that point. Now, I think to Jimmy's point, too, that's why you kind of like to see Jarris Walker out there, is because you realize this is not a contending level year. Let's advance it towards the future years. But with Nembhard in particular, like Jake was alluding to there, he's like Shepherd, a 4-year guy, and I think you can really see the value in those guys playing 4 years, whereas Jarris, he's 19, he played 1 year.
If you were Boston, and I've seen this a lot on the national shows, it's been the topic of discussion all series, the Boston perspective, you're up 2-0. Tyrese Haliburton could be done for the series. He could be back in Game 3. We don't know yet. Do you, at this stage, give extended rest to Kristaps Porzingis just because through 2 games it doesn't look like you need him?
I think that's
at least for this series.
No doubt. There was even hesitation whether or not he'd even be available for a 3 or 4. I think many were suggesting maybe he'd be ready in time for 4, and that's what I was getting at. If you're up 3-0, there's no reason to bring him back in a Game 4. Not at all, because you basically then have the series in hand, especially if Tyrese's injury is as bad as we're expecting here, and you're already looking ahead to the NBA Finals, and you need Kristaps to be healthy for that run against presumably Minnesota, but we'll see.
By the way, I don't need to tell you guys, the Thunderbirds did come back through.
We were ready that time. You could sense it that time before the run was made.
It was loud.
I felt it. That was the
loud.
first one I really felt.
I don't know how low they were, but that was loud. I was over there in the Victor Podium. I'm like, holy cow. That was something.
They were right on top of us, and we got a preview because everybody in this area had faced east and was just having their cameras ready, so that prepared us this time.
I know this is a comment for a different talk show, and I mean it with the utmost flippancy. But I have to admit, like when I hear people say, and I get it. I mean, we have constitutional rights in this country. I get it. I'm not against that. But when people say that they want to have their firearm to protect themselves against the government, I'm like, that's the government and the Thunderbird, right? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I hope your 38 helps out, but I mean, let's be real here, right? I mean, let's be real. I'm just saying, I always think to myself, like, if you were indeed like a third world country and that comes flying overhead,
good luck.
You know what I mean?
Hey. What is the point of having the shiny toys?
It's like bringing out a bird scooter for the start of the Indy 500.
But what is the point of having the shiny toys if we're not going to break them out on a day like Carb Day? I mean,
no disagreement. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not disagreeing with you at all. Listen, I want to get back into, on the other side, kind of a recap of what did take place in terms of practice and what I saw that jumped out at me. And I just talked to Davey Hamilton about it as well. And he saw something that he agreed with me on something, and it doesn't happen very often in terms of, if you will, handicapping the field and figuring out, Jimmy, I know it's right up your alley, right?
Absolutely. Anytime you speak handicapping and generacy, I'm right there. Scott, thank you for hanging with us, by the way.
Scott, thanks for filling in, man.
You.
Appreciate
Absolutely
it.
happy to.
Very much appreciated. Carb Day at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Miller Lite Carb Day. DJ is fired up. Number 7, DJ? DJ pacing himself. He is still going. DJ, or as we call him, the anti-Sweeney. Pacing himself and rolling along well, right? This guy's a veteran. I love it. All right, we'll come back. We'll let you know what happened out at IMS. And, by the way, exclusive offer for you members of the company. If you are a listener of Query & Company, this is a unique opportunity for you to see the producer of the company, Eddie Garrison, and, in fact, find out that, yes, in fact, he has a 9 3/8-inch head. The largest head that you will see is Eddie Garrison right here walking over right now. And your chance to get a photo of the human walking eclipse.
Are you charging
right
for that?
There.
Any truth you're charging for that photo?
That's right. $2.
Okay. All right. Okay.
We had the eclipse April 8th, and then you can come take one with your camera right here behind Eddie Garrison.
Luxair is the intelligent way to keep your home comfortable. Luxair units are designed, engineered, and assembled to last. To become a dealer, 317-926-6061.
Eric was way behind on his taxes.
I owed a lot of money to the IRS, almost $15,000. I tried to make payments.
The IRS wasn't satisfied with Eric's efforts, so they came after him full force.
They're coming to put a lien and a hold on all my income, my home, my car. I was just overwhelmed at what to do.
Then Eric called Optima Tax Relief.
When Optima Tax got involved, the calls would stop, the threats would stop. It was easy like 1, 2, 3.
Game when B. Swift gets on the microphone to get the crowd hamped up, right? Very similar. You hear him every day at 3 o'clock when you're flipping back and forth, of course, between that show and JMV. But B. Swift, our colleague from Hot 100.9, is here. Happy Carb Day.
Happy Carb Day. I'm glad to be here.
What'd you think of the game last night?
Ooh, hurt my feelings. A lot. I think the last 9 minutes stood out with the rotation swap out. Like, I didn't understand that.
Yeah, the only thing I could think, and Rick Carlisle, I thought it was interesting after the game saying, look, this was not a wave of the white flag. Maybe it wasn't a wave of the white flag. Maybe it was trying to just get something going, but it kind of felt like, because it was realistically 15-17, right?
Yeah.
And then they would get it down to like 6 or 8, but you kind of exert that much energy to get it there. They couldn't get over that hump. So maybe it's one of those situations where if they overcome that, then it's brilliance.
Yep.
But otherwise, it's waving the white flag, right?
Yeah, because that's how I looked at it. I was like, oh, so I'm going to just change the channel now. I think I see what's going on.
But Tyrese Haliburton's injury is the big question mark for those that are just joining us today. Where have you been? There is no update as of right now on the status of Tyrese Haliburton for the game coming up tomorrow night at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. But you will be there, right?
I'll be there. I'm there. I'm there Saturday and Monday.
How much responsibility, B. Swift? And for those that don't know, the world's greatest in-game MC there has to offer, B. Swift with us. How much extra burden do you feel on your shoulders knowing that if Tyrese doesn't go, it's on you to make sure, A, no one sits for the tip, and B, that Gainbridge is as rocking as it's been yet in its undefeated run in the playoffs?
You know what? I feel like every game is on me because I feel like I kick the crowd off. Like the players do, but I feel like I'm probably just as much of a big responsibility. So I feel like tomorrow and Monday's game is like heavily on my shoulders.
Now hold on. Every 15 or 20 minutes here, we because it is Miller Lite Carb Day here in the Pagoda Plaza at the Speedway. It's the greatest place to be in Indy.
Facts.
But we got to occasionally like pump the crowd up, which is what you do.
Okay.
So I need you now. I need you to get like Taylor Tannenbaum's here. Like I need you to get the crowd pumped up for Carb Day. Pretend you're at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. It's a tie game. It's the end of the third quarter. But no, it's actually Carb Day for the 108th running of the Indianapolis 500-mile race. And B. Swift is on the mic to get the crowd pumped. Go, the floor is yours.
All right, you put me on the spot. Let me see if I can do this. Are you guys ready? I need you to make some noise. Oh, no. That's not
Yeah, we need more than that.
Make some noise.
There we go. That's what I'm talking about, right?
All right.
Racers and pacers, right? We got it all, right? Okay. There we go. Perfect.
Okay,
Absolutely love it.
Quick question for you on your side. Did you come up with nobody sits for the tip, or was that an in-house decision? Because I love it. I know the fans love it too.
So it was something that they brought to me. When they was like, yo, we want to do something. We want you to say, nobody sits for the tip, but make it your own.
Yeah.
So I kind of just took it and ran, but they kind of gave an alley-oop saying this is something along the lines. And I was like, all right, that's creative. I can rock with this.
No, I love it because I think it's caught on and it's fully been embroiled in the fan base the same way Two Shots, Too Hot was. Like it's that same type of in-game element that the fans have really clung on to that I love about it.
Yeah, and I love it too. And again, it gets the crowd riled up and to see everybody really be, especially playoffs when we got rally towels.
Sure.
And I can get that place rocking them towels around like, oh, it gets real nuts.
Okay, now here's the other thing we need you to do. Can you get the crowd fired up because Connor Daly and Dennis Reinbold are here, and Connor Daly, I mean, he's a known Pacer fan as well, right? So how about get the crowd fired up for Connor Daly joining us?
Hey, you can feel every little bit of that.
I'm with you, Jay.
I told you.
I'm with you. I think they're lower each flyover.
Yeah.
I can't prove that.
We got high five them right there,
Man.
right?
Golly.
Okay, I think we're up against it, right? We are up against it. Connor Daly will hang out in here just a second. We'll come back. And if the Thunderbirds keep doing laps, we're just going to turn that bad boy up and let you listen to it, right? Miller Lite Carb Day, Speedway, Query Company, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Back home again.
Tradition.
Race day in Indianapolis.
The pride of Heritage Christian School, Noblesville, Indiana's own Connor Daly, who is here from Dreyer and Reinbold Cusick Motorsports, along with Dennis Reinbold, who is joining us as well. Gentlemen, good afternoon. I will just throw it to either one of you for whichever one of you wants to field it, and that is practice session. The final one is complete. How did things go?
I think honestly it was great to just get through the whole session. We got some good pit stop practice in. The conditions are so different every day that sometimes you kind of just got to keep yourself from overreacting to the winds and the temps. The winds definitely got a little bit more chaotic there towards the end of the session. So, I think for me personally, I'm very greedy because I want to win this race. So we want to get a couple more things, out of the car. And I have all the confidence that we're going to be able to make the right changes for the race. But, in general, the racing is still like, it's tough, man. No one can really go anywhere. So, unless you're at the front, it's going to be a real big track position race of, try to get yourself through the pits well, execute on strategy, and then hope you're in the first 3 cars at the end.
Connor, did you happen to notice, and I don't know, if you're in the cockpit and you got the other cars around you, if you're able to tell this, but the big narrative going into it is that you guys in the Chevrolets, big advantage in horsepower through qualifying. In race setups, is that advantage shrunk for the Hondas? Are they able to get closer in?
Yeah, for sure. I don't think there's a big discrepancy. And, Chevrolet's been awesome all month, but I don't think there's a huge discrepancy in race trim. It still becomes most about who's got the best handling car and who has the most efficient car. So, I think the Penske's still have a little bit on everyone, but it's, it's something, it's up to us to thwart their plans.
Good
Connor,
use of word.
Thank
that
you.
was good use of words. Connor and Dennis, this is one for both of you. From the mental gymnastics that take place from qualifications to the final practices to Carb Day itself to the race, is it the same mindset constantly, or does it require a different mentality given all the changes that happen from quals when you're going for fast as possible to navigating through the traffic that occurs during practice?
I'll let Connor take that one too. That's a good question.
Well, I think this month has been unique because of how much rain we got last week. Normally, we're kind of making sure we're maybe conserving tires because we've used so much in practice, but we didn't get to do any practice, essentially, it felt like. So, I feel like we need to come back next weekend and race, certainly with a new group here where we're still getting used to each other and understanding what I want and what we can get out of the car together. But I'm sure there's a lot of people in the same boat because we're all in the same situation when it comes to track time. But I think when it all gets to the showtime, you just have to put all the right pieces together. There are a few pieces that I'm sure that we've discovered that maybe are maybe they work, but what are our most confident pieces that we want to put together on this puzzle and then just work with it in the race? We can do front wing changes, we can do rear wing changes, we can do tire pressure changes. The track changes so much from stint 1 to stint 6. So it's don't overreact, but also try to be proactive.
You mentioned wanting to win this thing so bad as an Indiana native. How does that goal further motivate you when you look at just the spectacle that this race is and knowing that, look at the crowd out here alone, but the crowd certainly that'll be out there for you on race day that want to see a fellow Hoosier make good.
Yeah, Carb Day seems like it's alive and well. I love seeing everyone out here. It's pretty cool to be a part of it. And,
now hang on just a second. Connor Daly says Carb Day feels alive and well. Reaction,
well.
please. Thank you.
There you go. Yeah.
We're in the slight delay portion of
That's
the
all right.
Connor.
That's
right?
all right. Get your libations going. It's going to be a nice day. But yeah, this is the coolest event in the world. It's the biggest event in the world. Even the event today makes any other race on our schedule kind of look like a pregame show, you know what I mean? And most other races on any racing schedule, and this is just the final practice day, you know what I mean? It's Carb Day. So it's really impressive what we have here. And, it is a real shame that it's just, the only race that I can do, but it means the most either way. So we want to make sure we take advantage of it for not only the team members who have worked all winter since last May to get these cars ready, and they've done such an amazing job doing that. It's hard to put into words because you could talk about it forever, but it's just the coolest thing ever, and obviously it means the most ever. So if it goes great, you're having a great time. If you're not, then you're waiting 360 days to try to do it again.
And of course, Cusick Motorsports, Ryan Reinbold, Dennis Reinbold here as well. Dennis, you grew up just west of here, Cascade High School, right? Which you had a graduating class of 12 people back then, right?
A little more than that, but
I mean, we're roughly the same age. I'm just saying. But look, this is super cool for you because I know what this track means to you, and you bring fast cars here. You know, like we mentioned, Connor and Ryan Hunter-Ray. But this is year 50 for you, right? Race number 50.
It's no, we've had 50 cars in the race. We've been here 25 years.
I thought this was the 50th race you've attended. Sorry.
No, 25th year as a team, 50 cars in the race. So, and I grew up just about a mile and a half over that direction outside of Turn 1. And then we moved out west and went to Cascade High School, go Cadets. And so that's my background. Totally local, always hung around the track when I was a kid. Love it here. Still love it just as much. We haven't checked off the win box yet, and before we hired Connor and talked to him, immediately we said, you know, our only goal here is to win. We've been top 5, we've been top 10, so we haven't checked off the win box, and that's why we're here.
What stood out? I hate to put you on the spot with that, but what stood out about Connor? Why was he a driver that you wanted to secure for your team?
He's aggressive. I like aggressive. He finds his way to the front every single year, it seems like, and I like that. And we've got our work cut out for us this year starting in the back. We had a qualifying hiccup that put us back there, but I think we're going to have a fast race car. We're going to have good pit stops all day, hopefully, and we will be in contention, I believe, before the end of this thing. So Connor was a no-brainer. I've known Connor, I don't know when we first met. He was young.
I was probably a wee lad, just a young child.
A wee lad, yeah.
Probably still a wee lad.
Well, I don't know about that, but I appreciate it.
Probably 25 years ago to answer that, I guess.
Yeah.
But we've been friends, and so it's a no-brainer.
Dennis, this race, one of my favorite trivia questions, which I think is very cool, is that the 200th driver to lead a lap at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway was doing so in a Ryan Reinbold car, which is pretty darn cool. Justin Wilson, who was one of the greats for sure, right?
Right.
You know, you've had a lot of great drivers that have come through here and raced for you. You've had fast cars. I'm curious, when you bring cars here, how much of it is figuring out what the driver wants and having to bring, when you have a two drivers, for example, doing variation of what each respective driver wants out of that particular car?
This year's been just a dream come true to work with Connor and Ryan Hunter-Ray. Both give great feedback, know exactly what they need to go out there and get by other people on the racetrack. So it's been great to work with them, and just the feedback's been incredible. He was really nice earlier when he said that we were trying some different things today. I don't think we gave him the best setup out there today in practice, so we'll work on that and fix that by race day. But it was a challenge today, and we've seen that before, but we know he's up to the challenge during the race, and we'll put it up front.
Connor, I've asked all the drivers we've talked to this same question. At what point in time through your tenure here at IMS did the 500, or has it yet slowed down for you as a driver? We always talk about whatever the sport is, at some point in time, things start to slow down where you're seeing things a couple seconds ahead of time. Everything from a processing standpoint starts to click a little easier. Has that happened yet? And if it has, when did it slow down for you?
I mean, I don't think it ever slows down. I mean, 225 is always fast, so it never really slows down. But I think the confidence that I have, you know, like when we got to day one of practice, I was flat after one corner right out of the pits, and I hadn't driven since, you know, the test that got rained out. So I know what I can feel, and I know what I want. So the experience is quite helpful to be able to just lay into it right away and be like, all right, we need this, and then that's helpful. So, and then in the race, I feel like, you know, patience is something that I've always worked on over the years, because, you know, sometimes you can have a really annoying stint in the car, and then life changes immediately in the next one. So I think that it never slows down, and if anything, it only gets busier and busier, because, you know, we've got so many great partners and people that want to pay attention to the greatest spectacle in racing. So, you know, for us, I mean, I haven't even got to talk about the car yet after our session today. So, I can't wait to do that. And the job is still the most important part, but it's great to be able to interact with everyone, you know, at the same time.
Here's a dumb question, Connor, but, you know, you're a Pacer fan. I mean, you watch,
yes.
You know, you watch a lot of different sports. You're a Colts fan. Athletes in those sports will watch film, right?
Yeah.
You got to go back and watch film. Do you watch, after a practice session like that, do you go back and watch film to learn the line or the tendencies of the other cars to figure out who kind of has what?
Not really. I mean, you look at your own video. Like I look at Ryan's video, my teammates' video, just to see what's going on. We all have onboard cameras. And, if there's something that sticks out, for sure you want to try to find it. But it's really about looking at the race from last year and seeing kind of how things played out, what was the best strategy. We have so much data that we get off these cars now, too, that just studying how can you be the best that you can be, because you can't control anyone else. You can't control what other people are doing. If you just focus on everything that we can do to be the best that we can be, then, you can't be upset, by the end of the day, because, we all want to win in this group. So that's the goal.
Polka Dot's the sponsor. Connor Daly
Yes.
is the driver, and Dreyer and Reinbold Cusick Motorsports is the team. Dennis Reinbold is the owner. Dennis, I think most people know this by now, but you are obviously a local auto dealer in Indianapolis with Dreyer and Reinbold on the north side. And I'm curious, we talk about Connor Daly, we talk about Ryan Hunter-Reay, but you've got to have a good team. You got to have a good team that assembles so that they're getting clean stops. The driver is the one that gets the glory, but this truly is the definition of team sport. A, how do you assemble those people? And B, how does your experience from a business owner carry over to making sure that you're getting the right team assembled?
That's exactly what it is. We have to put together a great team, and we've had a lot of the same guys on the team for a number of years. Sometimes Chase Selman, our team manager, has been with us since he was like 13 years old. So it's a lot of experience that we have, and we've been fortunate to be able to add quality people. Sometimes the guys don't want to go on the road as much anymore, and they'll still want to come back to Indy and do that. So we've assembled people that way as well. But we swell up a little bit in our ranks of team members during the month of May to about 30 people. And full-time, we have probably about 12 or 13. So we start with the core guys and branch out from there.
I'm curious for either one of you guys, what is the schedule like tomorrow? And in addition to that, how does strategy change? I hate to say it, we're not going to say the word, but with forecast as it is, does that change strategy going into it?
I mean, I like tomorrow. I mean, tomorrow's insane anyway, just with all the stuff, but it's fun. It's all good, parts of what we love here at the Speedway. But I think it doesn't matter what the weather does. We'll just have to adjust for conditions when it comes to downforce levels. If it's a little cooler, that's usually helpful for grip and everyone becomes happier. But if it's hotter, that usually stresses out probably everyone a little bit more. So you can't overreact to anything. You just got to, live in the moment and work on what's best for when we got to get out there.
Yeah, for race day, though, we go out and we're changing our strategy possibly every single time we come in the pits. You don't know. So you're always able to adjust and need to be accepting of any kind of adjustments you have to make, because you never know how it's going to play out. So the same thing with the weather, we take that into account. It's just like taking into account a yellow flag or anything like that. So it doesn't really change our approach in that sense. But we hope we get the whole thing in and it starts on time and everybody has a great time.
I mean, we hope so, right? Because I've always said this place is, and for those that have never been here, it's so hard to explain. But it is such a magical place, and there's nothing like it on days like today. But it also is like literally the most depressing place on earth when it's raining, right? I mean, it's just like, oh my gosh, and like it just drags on. It's the worst, right?
Yep.
But we're not going to deal with it, right?
No, it's going to be great.
We're not going to deal with it.
I'm excited for sun on Sunday. Sunny Sundays.
There we go.
Yep.
I like that.
Connor, I'm sure you've seen the NBA playoffs. We know the Pacers are down 0-2, but TJ McConnell has been sensational for them. And the reason I bring him up, and to be clear, as a fellow Hoosier, I want to see you win this thing. But I got to bring you down a little bit here, because last time we talked to you, you told us you were going to emulate TJ McConnell in the Celebrity All-Star game. I expected an MVP performance from you. Your team did win, but it's Micah Parsons holding an MVP trophy at the end of the day. We were hoping to see you hoist that trophy.
What happens when what was I supposed to do with 78 seconds of game time? I can't score 30 and get 2 rebounds, 1 assist, no big deal.
So you're saying they froze you out? Is that what we're saying?
I'm saying I'm not 6'9", 240. Like that's what I'm saying. Yeah, they looked at me and they're like, probably not a basketball guy. So I'm not surprised.
But it was fun, right?
It was amazing. Yeah, we have a couple of our team members. Lily Singh from my team is is going to be here for the race, her first ever Indy 500, so that'll be cool. And yeah, pretty sweet experience.
25 years for Dreyer Reinbold, right? 50 cars for Dreyer Reinbold, and a first swig of milk coming up on Sunday, right?
That sounds like a great plan, yeah.
I like that. He's got iced tea right now. We'll have milk before long, and Connor will let you one more time get everybody fired up here. Thunderbird, everybody's waiting on the Thunderbirds. They haven't come back by, so go ahead and get everybody fired up.
Heck yeah, baby. Let's go. Let's have a great day. Yeah, I mean, the party's on. Let's go.
Now, hold on. I
Gin
need a
blossoms.
louder applause for Connor Daly, the pride of Central Indiana.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Listen, I heard them when you took the lead in turn 3 one year. I heard how loud they get. You heard them, right?
I'm excited. No, I didn't hear it, but I did afterwards.
we want you folks to be able to make it so that Connor can hear you.
Yeah, that's going to be fun.
When he's going into the turns. Guys, I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
I got a really busy day.
Thanks,
I appreciate it. Congratulations on 50 cars.
Thank you.
Best of luck to Connor Daly and Ryan Hunter-Ray. Ryan Hunter-Ray. You know what? I'm going to do something here actually in advance, because while we are working through here, guys, appreciate it. Let me find, it is time right now, and I'm trying to find where he went. Where are John and Jen? Are they here? I just saw John. John and Jen, come on up. Now, you folks may know, and this is what I love about the Speedway. John, come up here on the stage. You can bring Jen with if you'd like. It is time for our Friday. Come up onto the stage here. It's Feel Good, Good for the Heart Friday. Now listen, for those folks that don't know it, brought to you by Franciscan Health. You gentlemen in particular, and women as well. Critically important $49 heart scan from Franciscan Health, because you do not want to go through what I went through and having a heart attack. And Franciscan is #1 ranked by CareChex for interventional coronary care, for heart scans, and we will get you all the information you need on making sure that you are good in terms of your heart. But each and every Friday we do a segment called Feel Good, Good for the Heart. And this is, to me, the perfect feel-good, good-for-the-heart story, and it absolutely ties into why the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is the greatest place on earth, right? So, sitting next to me, guys, put the headsets on, okay? This is John, who is the pride of Clinton County, right, John?
Yep.
Okay, and sitting next to John, and we'll kind of save the whole culmination of why this is all coming together here, but Jen is with you, right? John, I want to begin with your story. You were telling me about it yesterday. Now, just so people know, John and I had never met, right? You texted me asking directions on how to get into the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and you said, I've got a couple of people coming from California. So I gave you directions. They were flawless, were they not? Thank you very much. Now, so yesterday we were talking, and you said, all right, here's my story. Look, I'm just going to tell you my story flat out, and I thought it was fascinating. You are a guy that grew up in California, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and then what brought you to Indiana as a youngster?
My grandparents were from here. They ended up raising me after my mother passed away, and this was after the riots in '92.
Okay, so your grandparents, your mother passed away when you were 12 years old, right?
Yeah.
She was a young woman. Your grandparents then raised you here in Indiana, right?
Yeah.
And so you, and admittedly, John, and I hope you're okay with me saying this,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
But you hit some tough times. You hit a tough, rough patch in life, right?
You could say that.
You made some bad decisions, but you turned your life around, right? Tell me about that real quick.
So, yeah, I ended up getting married and having kids at a young age. Everything was going well until I think it was around 2000 I got introduced to meth. Pretty quickly I had kind of turned my life upside down. Found myself in prison doing a lengthy prison sentence not too long after the inception of my addiction. So all told, I've done about 16 years in DOC, and I've been out for a few years now. I've got my life turned around with a new wife. She's awesome. She's been awesome. And one of the things I like to do to give back these days is I go into the Clinton County Jail one Saturday a month. I volunteer my time, and I mentor inmates that are on the same path that I was on at that time. They've been very receptive, and I think it's working.
And you got your degree while you were there, right?
Yeah, I got a college degree. Yeah, I have a business degree. Yep.
So here's the thing. First off, how about a hand for that? Because you got your life turned around, right? Which is fabulous. And then the best thing about it, and this is the feel-good part of it, why this place is magical. Because right next to you is Jen. Now, Jen, you are from California, correct?
Yes.
And you have never been to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, correct?
I've never been here.
And so you decided that you needed to come to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway because you wanted to meet somebody that you were aware of but had never met, right?
Correct.
The two of you met for the first time yesterday in person, correct?
Correct.
These two are siblings that found out recently. So, John, tell me how it was that you found out that you had a sister in California, and now you decided that this was the place you were going to make your family a family.
Yeah, so all along I knew, I've never met my biological dad. I knew what his name was. Last Christmas, one of my maternal aunts bought me an Ancestry.com account as a gift. My sister reached out to me as a result of our DNA match. We have a biological father in common. Neither one of us have ever met the guy. But that's how our relationship started. I think it was last March. Started over the phone. She's opposite of me. She's very extroverted. I'm the opposite of that. But she kept reaching out to me on a pretty regular basis, and therefore we've gotten to know each other pretty well, and we made these plans, and here we are.
And so you are now at the 108th running, Jen, at the Indianapolis 500-mile race. You got to love it, right?
I am it exceeds my expectations 100%.
So here's the thing, and this is what I love about this place, right? You hear about people that come out here and they're like, you know what? I know the person that sits next to me, I see him once a year. We come to the race, I see him once a year. And I say this all the time, and nobody understands what I mean until they come here. When you come to this place, you have 300,000 family members, 300,000 friends. It's a bond that connects everybody and interweaves this city together. And what better place for two siblings to meet and connect as a family than right here at the Indianapolis 500. So, Jen, I want everybody here to welcome Jen from the state of California to her first Indianapolis 500-mile race. And Dixie the praying dog loves it, too. Absolutely loves it. Guys, I appreciate the story. We wish you the best. And I appreciate, listen, all that serendipitously because you simply asked for directions. You had no idea that I was going to put you on the radio.
Amen.
Jen, welcome to Indianapolis, all right? I appreciate it, guys.
Thanks for the directions, by the way.
Hey, no problem. And don't tell anybody. That's my secret, right? That's my secret. Jen, go Padres. All right, guys, speaking of which, speaking of other stuff that makes everybody feel good, what better thing to do? Jen is going to be at the race, and she is going to be sitting there, and she's going to say, I have a brother from Indiana, but I didn't know that I was going to be in Indiana. And she is going to find out that there are a bunch of people here that once again are back home again in Indiana, right? So what better thing to do than to welcome the guy that will be singing that exact tune on Sunday. Please welcome the singer of the not only the national anthem of the Chicago Blackhawks games, but also, and I don't know if we're going to make him sing it or not, back home again in Indiana, Mr. Jim Cordelison joins us here, by the way.
Body.
And you have brought along another operatic singer, right, who sings national anthems.
Well, David and I know each other from Indiana University.
You? That's right. David Starkey, who is here as well from the Indianapolis Opera. Now, David, I'll begin with you. Yesterday, you and I were talking, and I loved what you had to say. You know, the city of Indianapolis has a number of different, obviously special things that take place, and one of those is, in fact, the opera. And what better way to kind of let everybody know about it than utilizing sports, right?
Absolutely, because when you have the biggest events in the world, you have to have the best singers in the world.
That's right. That's right.
And you do not want an embarrassing national anthem moment. So the opera singers are the ones that are trained, ready to step up and present the song in the way that everybody's expecting it.
That's right.
And then to exceed the expectation is to say, Jim Nabors was the best. But then, who's next? And how are they going to do it? And where are they going to show? Because it's that unique to each person, okay? Because before Jim Nabors, there were fabulous people that sang it.
Correct.
And there were going to be fabulous people afterwards.
And Jim Nabors didn't even know he was going to sing it until the morning he did it for the first time in '72. I don't know if you knew that, Jim. Hey, can you just go sing? Hey, Gomer, get up there and sing. And he did it, right?
But he was classically trained. He was ready for the moment because of his training. And so Indiana University has the best opera school in the world. That's right down the street from us. Indiana has the best events in the world. So that's what we do, is we step up, Pacer games, Colts games, the 500, the festival. We've all sent people there for the Indianapolis Opera, and that's what we do.
Did you guys have it like in college? Did you have opera offs? Like, were you like competitors and stuff? Did you just sit around and like so you could hold a note longer?
Well, it's like 8 Mile, but it's for opera singers.
Well, exactly. We were all tall enough to think we played basketball. We knew we didn't.
That's
so we sat around and we sang and we did.
It's like a karaoke night of karaoke, isn't it?
That's right. That's
exactly
right.
It's like, okay, you have one, I have one, or whatever. We'll play quarters, and whoever loses has to get up and do a song.
I'm telling you, that's how it was in college for you guys, right?
Well, that's when when you meet somebody and they say, "What do you do?" and say lawyer or doctor, and somebody says, well, what do you do? And they say, well, I'm an opera singer. And then they stop for a moment. And then the number one question is, sing us something. And we're like, no. We're not going to do that. Because
So I can't get you to do one note here?
Just note here?
Yeah, no, here's
well,
the thing.
because we're prepared, yes.
This is the thing. I want what I want at the end. We'll wait till the end here. But trust me, the crowd, and we've done research on this, kids love this. Well, I want the two of you at the end because, Jim, you're known for holding on to that home note forever, right?
Yeah.
Can we get a home off at the end between the two of you to see which one you can hold the note longer? Yes. Come on.
No.
What is it? Come on. I mean, it's a practice for the Indy 500, Jim. I mean, come on. It's a practice day, right?
It's Carb day. We're going to get warmed up.
You didn't know that I was going to put you on the spot here, right?
I mean, we've heard the Thunderbirds 4 times.
That's right.
We get at least one home once. Come on now.
Hey,
really, I gotta lead the song for the race.
All right.
And just so your feelings aren't too hurt, I was at Tinker Street 2 years ago, and I had the pleasure of meeting David Letterman, and he actually asked me if I would do it there at Tinker Street, and I said I can't do back home again in Indiana, so I had to do something else,
That's fair. Okay, so let me ask you this, because this is all I've always gleaming candlelight. Still burning bright or shining bright?
It's shining, but Jim Neighbors said burning.
Okay, so and you go.
I went to the Indiana State Museum to look at it because I actually watched a ton of different YouTube videos and listened to, and so you heard different words over the years, like by different people who sang it. I thought, well, I'm not going to ever replace Jim Neighbors. I'm not trying to be Jim Neighbors, so I'm just going to go back to the source and use the words that are official.
How big for you, Jim, an honor is it, though, to be able to not only be able to do it at the world's largest single-day spectator sport, but in addition to that, to become part of it, because you've become part of the tradition now.
Yeah, it's my 8th year, and I'm thrilled. I got to tell you, every time I come in here, it's like you come underneath the tunnel over here, and you're coming into this track that is built for this one purpose, and you feel the energy of everybody, all of you. I mean, holy crap, look at this for Carb Day. I can't believe it.
Awesome. It's awesome, right?
And then, just it's such an honor anytime you're placed in that place, like same with the Blackhawks, right? With the anthem or back home again in Indiana, where you're able to connect with people and then they accept you. I always feel like that's a real honor because people have very good feelings towards me, and then I want to be able to kind of live up to that in a way, just be able to interact with people, talk to them, do what I can, because it is an honor, and it's hard to put into words. I'm just trying to find a way to somehow make it make sense that it's an incredible honor to be part of this race this day. I mean, look at it.
And David, in terms of that talent, you have it as well, and it is here in Indianapolis, and people can come out and see that kind of performance throughout the year. It doesn't have to be just at IMS, right?
It does, and actually this next season, the Indianapolis Opera is celebrating its 50th anniversary. It started in 1975, and so we've been bringing world-class singers from all around the world. We've been mentoring them. We've been cultivating them, and they go out and they sing all over the world, and this year we're going to be bringing them back to have a one-time big gala event in March 22nd at the Haliburton Theater with the Symphony. And we have to do stuff big, but we also love to do stuff intimately. So we'll be in all the communities of Indianapolis, taking opera, taking basically the best singers and putting them out there and saying, these are the most amazing things that you're ever going to see live. Just like when I'm here and I get to stand next to the stage, which has been a blessing several times while Jim sings, and my amazement of what he does, what the audience does, what the band does. Yeah. I mean, it's at a level that is beyond anything I've ever been trained to do or experienced, and yet we do it so naturally here in Indiana, and I think that's just a testament to what we believe in.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do, and feel free to tell me no, but then you're going to have to do it, okay? So since you won't do home, which I get, that's fine. I understand it, Jim. I get it, right? You don't want to give out the milk for free. I totally get it, right? Pardon the pun. So what we're going to do is I'm going to say the name of the station that we're on, which is The Fan. And I'm going to say the call letters and everything else, and then I'm going to say and then I want you guys to throw us to break by seeing which one of you can hold the longer note of singing fan. Can you do that? Just fan like that. Can you do that?
Are you going to join us?
Yes, I will join you.
Okay.
For like 3 seconds. All right, here we go. You're listening to Query and Company Carb Day edition. How about a hand for Miller Lite Carb Day on 93.5, 107.5. The Fan. Dixie loves it.
The laundry room. For as long as I can remember, this was the only place to get a good Wi-Fi connection. Until we got Xfinity. Now we have Wi-Fi all over the house.
Still a huge throng of fans here at IMS. By the way, I want to remind you folks one more time, is the #1 heart program in Indiana for cardiology by Health Grades, #1 in Indiana for interventional coronary care and major cardiac surgery by CareChex. Franciscan Health offers an affordable heart scan, which is oh so important, for just $49. You're able to self-refer, pay out of pocket, and a free health risk assessment comes with that. It's included in all bundling. It is oh so important. If you are interested, and again, if you are over the age of 40, you have a history from a family standpoint of heart disease, or if you're a former smoker, have battled weight problems, a number of things, but just in general, even if you don't have those symptoms, you want to get that heart taken, have them take a look at it. FranciscanHealth.org/screening bundles is the website, or you can always call 833-238-0688. Or as always, you can send me a text or an email, and I will get you in touch with how to make sure that you are getting that done. All right, final practice for the Indy 500 took place earlier today. And I mentioned this earlier. You heard Connor Daly talking about it. The Chevrolets, and in particular the Penske Chevrolets, are the class of the field, at least in terms of straight line speed. Will Power, Joseph Newgarden, Scott McLaughlin, who is the pole sitter. Right below them, you would have the Arrow McLaren cars that have been fast, in no particular order. Pato O'Ward, Alexander Rossi, Kyle Larson in particular. Pato O'Ward is somebody that will put his car wherever it needs to go. He is pretty fearless and very laid back. Like Pato O'Ward, 2 years ago, might have cost himself the race because he wasn't aggressive enough in turn 1. Last year, might have cost himself the race because he was too aggressive in turn 3. But he is even keel and is pretty poised and calm, cool customer. Any of those 6 cars has a great chance to win. But what I watched in practice was looking for cars that the driver very clearly was comfortable with where they were driving and was able to play in traffic and use different lines while having control of their car. I don't pretend to be an expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I've watched a lot of races and called a lot of races. The cars to me that, aside from the obvious fast, that jumped out and I looked at and said, these are people that you really need to take a long look at on race day. And as Connor Daly mentioned, the aero package of these cars, and especially in thick air, might be such that it's difficult to make passes. And so it may be that if you're starting up front, that's where you're going to stay unless wonky stuff happens. But if you are looking for somebody that is not starting in one of those 6 that I just mentioned, then this is where I see it. The ones that jumped out to me in no particular order, that looked the most comfortable in multiple lanes. Colton Herta, who has a really good race car. Didn't qualify well, but a really good car in race setup. Colton Herta. Elio Castroneves. And Castroneves, when I was talking to Davey said absolutely Castroneves has a really good car and knows his way around here and was trying in different lanes to look comfortable and go where he needs to go. And then the 2 that would be obvious in those Hondas, Scott Dixon and Alex Palou. Scott Dixon was fast in traffic. His car looked good. Same with Palou. Those are the ones that jumped out at me. The other thing that jumped out at me in that practice session, and session does not a race make, I realize, and this guy is excitable. This guy's improved 54 spots totality in his career. He has never finished lower than where he started, but Santino Ferrucci seemed to have issues with that car. They did not seem to have the speed in that A.J. Foyt machine that I think Ferrucci was looking for. But those are the things that jumped out at me. For those of you who, like Jimmy, are degenerate gamblers, that's the information I would
one time for degeneracy. Let's go. All right. Real quick, and they might run me out of here for this question, but I have to ask you since I have you here. If Mother Nature doesn't cooperate, does that change anything in terms of your picks or your observations, or is it as simple as, no, the cars were good, it's just a different day?
No, I think that with the weather unpredictability that we're anticipating, the one thing that you have to realize is this. There's not going to be some team that's going to look at it and say, we're going to go ahead and get aggressive early because we think the skies are going to open up, at such and such a time, and they're going to outthink everybody in that regard because they're all going to be looking at the same stuff, right? So it would seem to reason, unless you get a weird pit strategy where all of a sudden the leaders all have to come in and pit, and then as soon as they do, somebody that's running 19th inherits the lead, and then the skies open up and it never relinquishes.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this, I want to make very clear here, this is not me speaking as somebody who works as a contracted employee here. So this is not any information that we were told like in any sort of meeting or anything like that. But the word is that the Speedway and the and everything else are prepared on Sunday to be able to run all the way until, and they have gotten, the big thing there is the television clearance. It is my understanding that they are under the belief that they will be able to run until darkness falls at like 8:30 in the evening. Now, that obviously could be earlier if it's really overcast.
Sure.
But if they have to wait until 5 or 6 o'clock and the track is dry and they feel like they got a 3-hour window, I got news for you. They're running on Sunday. That's the way it's going to work. I don't think that they're going to be waiting for clearance from the broadcast partner. I think they're going to go.
That's good.
They're going to do everything they can to get this race in on Sunday. There's a guy back here wearing a Bobby Rahal t-shirt. Rahal won the race in '86 when they ran it a week later, but that was because that was the first year that ABC was doing a live broadcast. So they wanted to make sure that they got the totality of the broadcast live, so they moved it. In '97, they went Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Tuesday, it was festival seating. It was opened up. I don't think that I'm hoping that we're not going to see that situation here, because I do believe they're going to do everything they can to make sure that somebody is drinking milk on Sunday.
He also has on what I would best describe as a safari bucket hat, which I'm also a fan of.
Yes, indeed.
It
The Bobby
I
Rahal fan.
love it. I love it.
And judging by the look of it, plenty of sunscreen, right?
Yes.
I'm judging that
He's
as
well prepared. He's pacing
That's
himself.
right. All right, we'll come back. We will get ready to hand it over to JMV, and we will put a tie on all of it here on this Carb Day edition of Query & Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Thank you.
Need air conditioning service and want to work with a local trained dealer you can trust, like Stevenson Heating and Cooling?
Not a athlete. This is my way. This is how I win.
Popular, shockingly unsponsored Jay Cook plays of the day. We'll start first in order going into the weekend. Tonight, Timberwolves Mavericks game 2. Dallas leads that series 1-0. We'll take Anthony Edwards over 27.5 total points. In the world of baseball, this sounds like free money. Is it too good to be true? We'll find out. Jake's Baltimore Orioles, a.k.a. Cute Fella, begin a series against the Chicago White Sox. Will lay 1.5 on the run line on the Baltimore Orioles. And also, additionally, shout out to Andy Sweeney with this one. We'll take the New York Yankees to win the money line over the San Diego Padres.
There we go.
Into the weekend now. He's scored in 3 of his last 4 matches. He's at plus 110. On Saturday night, we'll take Lionel Messi as an anytime goal scorer for Inter Miami. Pacers and Celtics. Look, we don't know yet if Tyrese Haliburton's going to play, but 2 players that are going to have to show up big at Gainbridge Fieldhouse are Pascal Siakam and Miles Turner. We'll take over 22.5 total points for Pascal Siakam and over 16.5 total points for Miles Turner. My last one is my race pick. Are we saving that for the end, or do you want me to give that now?
I think we're doing those on the...
We are doing it on social media, but I already said earlier who I'm picking.
I believe those are being announced on the pre-race show, correct?
That and a social media post on Sunday, so.
Okay. So what I'm saying is...
You saying I should pocket it? Okay,
Correct.
I will pocket it. We will not reveal
to do that
who my
on
selection
Sunday.
is for the 108th running of the Indianapolis 500.
I already lost one bet because I had over under that Andy Sweeney would not make it until 2. And it's 3 o'clock. He's still here. Andy Sweeney's here.
I'm good, and I've been hanging with this crazy group.
Well, you're drinking iced tea.
Well, no, it's some sort of IPA. I've been hanging out with this weird group of JMV fans, and I even have a JMV bracelet.
Yes.
For 3 o'clock.
That is awesome.
JMV sucks on
Those
it.
are called friendship beads.
Who gave you Patron? That's my biggest question. I need to know.
It was a gentleman. His name was like Shaky or Scratchy or something like that. He walked up. He says, I couldn't find Everclear for you and KB, so I got Patron. He says, do you want some? At 7:15, I said, of course I want some, and that was basically what happened.
So here's the thing, Andy. It's your first carb day. Your overall impressions, met expectation, exceeded expectation.
No, it's met expectations. It's been fantastic. I've been everywhere. I've been down there towards the pit area. Went up on and watched some of the practice between 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock, and then went out on level 3. I mean, we were talking wet T-shirt contest. We're talking JMV losing his bet on the times I've used the trough. I mean, we're good to go. I mean, we've experienced, I feel like, both sides of Carb Day 2024.
Do you get a cut of that action or no?
I get no cut of any action today.
Now, what's your race day plan? Are you coming to the race?
I mean, yeah, I'm coming to the race. My plan is, I feel good. I got my backpack of goodies. I'm good to go. I'll be listening to you on the old AM FM radio. I'll be good to go. That's my plan.
Now, here's the thing.
I'm good to go.
Here's the thing. When you're listening on the radio, the one thing I will tell you, and I appreciate everybody listening on the fan or on the app, but there's always somebody that asks me afterwards, why were you guys calling the action like a lap too late? And I'm like, well, I mean, it takes a while for things to get into your ears.
Well, no,
right?
I won't be on the stream, though. I'll be on the actual feed. I'll be on 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying? That's what I have. Hey, these cost $40 on Amazon, baby. They arrived last night at 10:45
so you
p.m.
You have it instantaneous as I'm saying it, right?
Well, that's what I'm expecting, yeah.
All right, so JMV is up next.
Oh, boy.
Andy Sweeney may be sticking around. We'll see. Big crowd lined up. I want to thank everybody, by the way, for coming out and making this place what it is.
Let's go.
The greatest place in the world, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Thank you so much. We will be back with you on, depending on what day the race runs. I hate to say it that way, but we will be back next week on Query & Company. Enjoy, by the way, the 108th running of the greatest race in the world. Thank you so much for listening. JMV's up next. You've been listening to Query & Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
The Ride with